And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. That's tough to say. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Neil Orfield, and we are here to break down a 6-game MLB slate. I am unquestionably going to call it an NBA slate throughout this show. There's just no way around that. I just don't know when it's actually going to happen, but I promise you it will. Hit the like button on this Memorial Day. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell until if you know everything goes live. I don't know. Guys, it's been a long weekend. I assume everybody else treats Memorial Day the same way I do and just punishes their body for 3 days with sun and booze and all other good stuff. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Neil, how are you?
I'm doing well. This is the first time that you and I have talked face to face, if you can call it that, since you were on High Stakes, which is still the most popular episode of High Stakes with 4.4 thousand views so far, which might not be a lot to you because you see that like regularly on just like any like down days for the NBA. But for me, it's pretty exciting to get 4.4 thousand views. So excited to be talking with you again.
I'll be honest. I went probably like last week and checked the viewership and noted that I was still on top. So that made me feel quite good.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy about it. So for everybody that isn't familiar, go watch that and start with mine because obviously viewership means it's the best. It's like movies and dollars in the theater.
Makes sense to me.
I'm excited to talk baseball. I haven't talked about it in probably a full year. I honestly don't remember doing shows last year, but clearly I did. Doesn't matter. I got my model built out, finished up everything that I needed for today. So I've got everything that I need at a moment's notice. That made me feel good. Still got to build out the sim yet, but we'll get there when we need to. Clearly, plenty of tools at awesemo.com that can help you out here. I didn't know that we had a top hitters tool. That was fun to see. So I checked that out earlier today, or at least I saw the beta tab at the very least. Yeah, chat, what's going on? What'd you say?
I said I have not used the top hitters tool yet, but I am excited about. I didn't actually realize that it had come out, so maybe I'll start looking at it.
So I only knew that it existed. I didn't look at it to see if any data had been populated yet, but I have had things like that. 6 games, lots to talk about, I guess. A couple big stacks. We're going to go game by game, break this bad boy down. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in here because honestly, I don't know how much I've got to say about anything in baseball. Certainly don't know what some of these guys are and what teams they're on, but we're going to get there when we get there. Here we go. Red Sox. First one up. At home, Baltimore Orioles on the opposite side. I've got 5.6 runs for the Red Sox, 4.4 for the Orioles, 61% chance to win. Rich Hill going for the Sox, Tyler Wells going for Baltimore. Not a lot of pitching ownership going to either one of these guys. Do you see anything, whether it's Rich Hill or Tyler Wells, that stands out to you, guys that you're trying to get to at all?
Not really. Like in a vacuum, I look at both of them and I don't love either of the plays. They both do look good in the top pitchers tool. So that's really all I can say about them. Both of them have pretty bad strikeout rates. We've got Tyler Wells at a 16.1% strikeout rate. That's not great. Rich Hill, 16.7% strikeout rate. That's not great. So nothing standing out as far as their actual pitching ability goes. But they both look pretty good in the top pitchers tool. So that is kind of the best thing I can say about them. Rich Hill with a projected for 4% ownership, 9.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 10.2% chance of being a top 2 value. And then Tyler Wells, 1.3% ownership. So that is pretty minimal, but then a 20.8% chance of being a top 2 value, 6.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. So they look okay in the top pitchers tool. I still don't think that they are good enough pitchers that I'm going to be trying to kind of force them in if they don't come into my lineups naturally. And I'm running my first crunch right now, actually. And through 400 lineups, I have 2 lineups each with each of them in it. So I'm guessing I'm not going to be getting to either of them in my 150 sets, and I don't think I'm going to force it.
Yeah, when I ran a crunch a little bit earlier, I got a little bit more Rich Hill than that, not a lot. I don't see either one of these guys grading out all that well. Tyler Wells was quite a bit lower than even Rich Hill, but I think Rich Hill is just getting pulled through from the fact that they're taking on an Orioles offense that is maybe slightly below average. I don't want to disparage them too much without Adam being here to at least defend his Baltimore Orioles a little bit. But yeah, this doesn't strike me as the pitching matchup. Now, obviously 6-game slate, if you're playing 150 lineups, like there's a decent chance you end up with little bits of both of these guys. It's not all that crazy. Just wouldn't be starting there with any sort of like single entry 3 max type builds.
Yeah, they're just not lineups that I'm, targeting, or not pitchers that I'm targeting. And the Orioles have a 4.4 run implied total, so it's not like they're even, if they were down at 3.2 because they were so untalented, maybe I'd have interest in Rich Hill. But yeah, neither of them are pitchers that I really want to get to.
Now, offense, on the other hand, definitely going to be a little bit different here. In particular, for the Red Sox, at the very least, they grade out very well to me. To me, one of the three best teams here. They're kind of in the middle of the pack. I think the Brewers have a lot of value. I think the Dodgers have a little bit less value. Red Sox are kind of fitting in the middle, at least for me. How are you feeling about the Sox today?
Yeah, I have a lot of interest in the Red Sox. They show slight negative leverage in the top stacks. Actually, I'm going to refresh that and make sure that's true. But so the way the top stacks tool works right now is it is 75% based on their top stack odds and 25% chance based on their top value odds. So they actually pull in slight negative leverage because they have a 10.9% ownership and only a 4.6% chance of being in the top value stack. But the way I approach it is not quite that way. So I look at both the top stack odds and the top value odds, and to some extent with the teams like the Red Sox that are just not, most of their best batters are kind of expensive, I kind of throw out the top value odds to some extent. I focus more on their top stack odds because they're obviously not where you're finding value. So I pay more attention to the top value column on teams that are cheaper and allow you to, play better secondary stacks and better pitchers. So I don't care as much about the top value odds for the Red Sox. I see positive leverage. When I look at it, I see 10.9% projected ownership, 11.9% chance of being the top stack on the board. So I do have interest in the Red Sox going up against Tyler Wells. They have maybe the highest 5.6 run implied total. I believe that is the highest on the board. So they have the best, the highest implied run total on the board. And that's kind of what you would expect in this matchup against Tyler Wells. Yeah, sign me up for the Red Sox for sure.
Yeah, on the exact same page as you. I actually have them coming out in my sims as my top stack. They're the team that I'm getting to the most. Seems like there's just enough salary to go around for me right now. So I'm getting inundated with Red Sox 5-mans when I run that crunch. And it's up and down the order too. I don't even think that I'm being ultra picky when it comes to just getting to Boston. They look good. Totally. I mean, yeah, I don't love getting to someone like Jackie Bradley in the 9 hole, but at 2,300, it's pretty easy to bring him along for the ride and have a Devers, Martinez, whatever stack. They're a little expensive, but it's really just 4 guys, at least from a DK perspective. Everybody else seems to be pretty tolerable. So I don't have much issue here. I love, going up against someone like Tyler Wells, not a star by any means, 4.72 FIP coming out of Steamer. So nobody that I'm trying to avoid. Not the best park for lefty power, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, just looking up and down the order, you're right. There's a few batters who are very expensive. JD Martinez at 5,700, Rafael Devers 6,000, Xander Bogaerts at 5,400. But then you mix in the guys like Christian Vazquez at catcher on DraftKings in particular. It's only 3,500. Franchy Cordero, he's 7th in the order. So you don't love to spend your first base spot on somebody who's 7th in the order, but he's only 3,000. So it makes some sense to go there. Alex Verdugo is only 3,600 batting 5th. So it's just top to bottom. I'm getting to a lot of Red Sox top to bottom as well when I'm looking through my Red Sox stacks.
Who are you getting the most of?
Christian Vazquez currently. I haven't done anything to adjust that, but yeah, I'm actually getting to, in my Red Sox stacks, I'm getting to 88% Vazquez, 88% Devers. I don't love that. I would like to spread it out a little bit more. Actually, I answered the question only for my stacks. I should look at it overall. Unstack it because that often does change things. Yeah, I'm getting to more Devers if I unstack it. So Christian Vazquez makes it in there naturally in my 5-man stacks, probably just because he allows me to play more of the expensive guys. But Rafael Devers is a guy that I'm getting to the most overall because I'm probably getting some one-offs and obviously 2 offs as well.
Yeah, love Devers in this spot right now. He has probably the best combination of upside and price coming out of anybody. Well, upside and value, honestly, relative to everybody else for the Red Sox. But I'm just happy to be getting some Boston. Nice to see the porn bots showing up. I didn't know if they'd be taking the day off for Memorial Day, but it's good to see them showing up. So hi there, Naked HD XYZ. Oh, I can't even keep reading that. Never mind.
That one just keeps coming back. Yeah, right. It's better than the ones we were getting last week. We were getting some pretty bad porn bots. This one is pretty, PC relative to some of the ones we were seeing last week. So At least they're improving, I guess.
Yeah, they come for me usually. I'm a draw when it comes to that kind of stuff. I'm lucky it's Memorial Day, Sean V. I'm going to be a nice person, allow you to hang out in this chat today. Let's talk Orioles because I don't really have too much to worry about when it comes to Rich Hill. So righty power seems to rule the roost on the opposite side, and they are running out what looks like 9 righty bats. Decent spot for Baltimore. How do you feel about the Orioles? Is that a team that you want to try to get to? Pricing looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested in the Orioles today. They're coming in at 9% projected ownership on the stack with an 8.2% chance to be in the top stack. So a little bit negative leverage, and they're just flat top stack odds. But then in terms of top value odds, they're at 18.3%. So that is double their projected ownership. So they look really good in terms of allowing you to get to other, better pitchers and better secondary stacks. And they're playing in Fenway, which is actually, I think, a better park for them than Camden Yards this year. So some improvement there. They're playing against Rich Hill. You'd love to see that. So I definitely expect to come in over the field on the Orioles overall. In terms of who I am targeting, give me a minute here. Let me see who I have in their lineup today. Yeah, so I am getting to a pretty good amount of Austin Hayes in the leadoff spot. He is my most owned Oriole at the moment. Righty-lefty matchup looks pretty good. I'm getting to a fair amount of Ryan Mountcastle in the 3-hole, looking pretty good. I'm actually not getting to as much Trey Mancini as I think I would like to get to in this matchup, another righty-lefty matchup. He's looking good. Ramon Urias looks pretty good at 9.2%, just top to bottom. I am getting a little bit of the Orioles top to bottom. I heard on the earlier show, Eric predicted that Adley Rutschman is going to have his first home run of the year. So I don't know if you trust Eric, you got to jam in your Adley Rutschman. It's got to be coming. It's got to be coming pretty soon. Good spot for him. He's in the 6-hole. So I do like Adley Rutschman today. The only Oriole that I'm really not getting to at all, I think I have one lineup with him in it currently, is Ryan McKenna. Not getting a lot there. Not getting to a ton of Jorge Mateo in the 7 spot. And I'm not getting a lot of Chris Owens, but I'm getting a little bit more of those guys, 4%. So yeah, top to bottom, the Orioles look pretty good. Generally, I like 1 through 6 are generally the bats that I'm targeting for the Orioles.
Yeah. We basically had the same sort of explanation there. McKenna was the guy that I wasn't really getting to. Everybody else was just sort of pretty balanced up and down the line. I think it's just a function of pricing. I think they're relatively easy to get to. We just got a Cubs lineup, and I believe the Brewers lineup.
Oh, good.
And I didn't have one of these characters with their proper handedness. So I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. So who's this Nelson character? I don't know anything that's going on. Guys, I'm going to say that, and you probably don't like to hear when I say I have no idea what teams people are on. I don't find that incredibly valuable as information for baseball. We have more data for baseball than I think that we do for any other sport that we can prepare for. I live for baseball stats. I think it's the easiest sport to project. And with the way that I have my model set up right now, I can get this stuff rerun in a moment's notice. So while I might not know what's going on, except for my Braves, I am very, very happy with the model that I have in baseball.
I don't even think I knew that you were a Braves fan until I saw your jersey today.
If it helps, I'm a lapsed Braves fan. I'm taking credit for it. I did not care at all that they won the World Series.
All right. Fair enough.
Do I want them to succeed more than any other baseball team? Yes. Do I want to watch a baseball game? No.
I like going to baseball games. I go through periods where I watch baseball a lot. Like I get into the habit of watching baseball. I haven't really been watching a ton this year, to be honest. But there are years that it's kind of a fun routine. Just get into if you're hanging out with people, drinking a beer, watching baseball, it can be a good time. I'm less likely to watch it by myself though.
Oh, sign me up for going to a game. I mean, that I want to do.
Yeah.
But I can't watch it on TV any longer. I just can't. It's a technology thing. There's too many. If I can scroll through Instagram, I can't watch a baseball game as well. That's going to be difficult for me.
Fair enough.
All right.
Are you
Nelson Velasquez
working on getting these lineups together?
Yeah, I just want to paste this Nelson Velasquez guy in here and figure out what he hits with so I can update everything else. So if anybody happens to know, obviously I'm about to search Fangraphs for this, but Nelson Velasquez. So it's really hard to get a very easy export of handedness in baseball. It doesn't exist in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And I use NatStat for it because they do have a pretty quick export. They're missing so many people. So I have a sneaky suspicion that I'm going to need to send them an email and be like, hey, every time I find one of these guys, who can I email for you to get this information updated faster? I've got nothing else for the Orioles at this point or for the Red Sox. I think game 1 is officially in the books. What do you think?
Yep. Agreed.
Bingo. Well, gives me time to hit a read quickly. Schedule for the rest of the day. Now, this part's going to be easy for me. I know how to read the schedule off. It has nothing to do with baseball. MLB Live Before Lock will be coming up next. We don't have a ton of sports going on right now, and free content only exists in baseball as well. MLB ownership is free. We're going to touch on ownership throughout the show. If you want to follow along for that, either check it out in chat to see if there's a link there, or go to awesemo.com, browse directly to it. Game number 2 for us. New York Mets hosting the Washington Nationals. The Mets 5.1 run implied total, Nats 3.9, 62% chance to win for the Mets. David Peterson and Eric Fede going for the Mets and Nats respectively. Not a lot of ownership coming in for Fede, but Peterson pulling quite a bit on DK, 8,200, 20% on my last run, 10% on FanDuel at 8,700. Does he stand out to you?
I'm going to have some Peterson. I will be under the field. I'm getting to actually just naturally, I'm getting to about the amount I would want just based on the top pitchers tool. He's coming in at 19.6% projected ownership with a 14.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 12.8% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher at 8,200. The matchup looks pretty good. Actually, the Nationals have been bad against lefties this year. So if you want to play Peterson, he looks fine at 8,200, 22.4% strikeout rate, 1.00 whip. So the numbers look pretty good. He's just coming in a little bit over-owned according to the top stack tool. So I'm pretty happy that I'm getting to around 10% David Peterson. I probably want to get somewhere between 10 and 15, 20% of David Peterson. If I get to 10%, totally happy with that number. I think that he is a fine pitcher in a fine spot. It's just not, there are better spots on this slate in the higher end and then also in the lower end. So I'm not going to be going out of my way to force in David Peterson, but I do think that it is a decent spot for him, and I'm happy to get to him here.
I actually got a ton of him. He was my 3rd most exposed pitcher when I ran my crunch earlier. Now that we just got a couple more lineups in, I'm going to go ahead and rerun that crunch since it won't take all that long. I was a little surprised to see it. He wasn't somebody that I expected to show up at the top of my list. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm definitely seeing some surprises as I'm looking through my first crunch, because I just ran at the beginning of the show. I'm getting to a lot of Glenn Otto, which is kind of shocking to me. I don't know that I really want this much Glenn Otto, so I'm guessing some of the other pitchers will come up as my Glenn Otto ownership comes down, but maybe not. Well, I guess I'll see whether I want to get this much. Yeah, he doesn't look that good in the top pitchers tool, so I think I'm going to come down off of Glenn Otto a little bit and get more of some of these other guys.
I basically have 3 tiers. I have Walker Buehler on his own tier. Zach Allen and Peterson are pretty close for me, so I'm willing to say that they're in the same tier. And then Rasmussen, Ashby, Otto, even Rich Hill to a degree are all pretty close in this next tier. So I don't see a huge difference there. But yeah, Peterson is coming pretty firmly into my number 3 spot from a pitching perspective. Not something that I fully expected when I started running these crunches. It might just be a pricing thing. 8,200 looks totally fine. Do you expect to get to Fede on the opposite side?
I did not get to a lot of Fede. I have 1% currently. He's not somebody that I am going to be forcing into my lineups. Just not a great real life pitcher. He does look good. He looks good in the top pitchers tool, coming in at 3.1% projected ownership, 10.2% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 14.6% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. I've said it before on these shows. I usually am more concerned about ownership relative to odds of success when it comes to bats than pitchers. For pitchers, I just kind of want higher floor in general. So I'm less concerned about a pitcher having, really high top 2 odds, as opposed to like if Walker Buehler gets to 20 fantasy points and there are 2 pitchers that outscore him, but they're pitchers that you don't really expect to be there, and they get, 22 and 24 fantasy points. I don't really care that much if I have a ton of Walker Buehler. Like the difference there isn't nearly as big of a difference as it is stacks. The difference between like the best stack and the 4th best stack is probably a lot bigger than the best pitcher and the fourth best pitcher. So I'm less concerned about these numbers than I am with stacks. But so I'm not getting too much Eric Fetty. I don't think that I will get to a lot of Eric Fetty. And while we're still in this game, I should mention Terry is in chat saying that he actually really likes David Peterson today. It sounds like he is one of Terry's favorite pitchers, and Terry does deeper dives into the actual pitchers. He says he'll have plenty. So maybe I'll try and force in a little bit more David Peterson at the expense of somebody like Glenn Otto.
Yeah, it's good to see that Terry is on Peterson as well. It makes my crunch look a little bit better. We'll switch it over to the bat side, though. Mets, Nats, not exactly popping for me here. Nationals in particular, quite low. Mets a little bit higher, but nowhere near one of my personal top stacks. Do you see it differently?
Mets I have a lot of interest in. So they're coming in at 6.2% projected ownership with a 9.1% chance of being a top stack. I really like those numbers. It's a great matchup, obviously, against Eric Fedde. So yeah, I think the Mets are a team that I really like just because of the ownership. I'm just going to want to get to more than the field there. And actually the Nationals too also look really good. I mean, kind of the way I craft my lineups is honestly, I'm just using the top stacks tool. Maybe I'll refresh this and see if maybe these numbers have changed, but usually if I have the time, I'm crafting the percentages I have, the exposures I have to different stacks based on the top stacks tool. And currently both of these teams actually look really good. The Mets coming in 6.2% ownership, 9.1% top stack odds. Really like those numbers. I will definitely be getting to some Mets bets. And then also Washington on the other side. I mean, we like David Peterson. Maybe it's an all sides are here because the Nationals are coming in at 3% projected ownership, but 5.8% chance to be in the top stack on the board and 11.6% chance to be in the top value stack on the board. So hard not to have some interest there with just the amount of positive leverage on the Nets. I think that I will be coming in pretty well over the field on both of these stacks.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm on a different level right now. Mets came out as my 7th most frequent stack out of my test crunch, which I thought might be a little bit higher. Like I have them 4th in just like aggregate fantasy points. Can we stop for a second and talk about how great it is that the DH just exists all the time? And like, it's not one team's got 8 batters, one team's got 9, and slightly different to compare raw data. I'm so happy.
It makes things easier for sure. Yeah.
Way better.
Yeah,
way
it's pretty
better.
nice.
But I do have the Mets as like a slightly negative value. McNeil in particular is the biggest negative value for me at the $5,200 mark. Now he's obviously a fantastic hitter, but maybe not the pop that I'm totally looking for. You do get the good positional eligibility. Second and outfield certainly helps. Looks like I would end up being mildly light on the Mets. The Nats are coming up as my 2nd worst stack. They only showed up in 11 of the 500 lineups. I just ran like an unencumbered 500 lineup crunch with some randomness on it. Doesn't appear that I'm getting to as much Nats. I'm a little surprised that 2 through 5 section of their lineups got a ton of power. And not that it doesn't, like, it keeps going through Blaine Thomas and Franco too at 6 and 7, but big time raw ISO numbers in the 2 through 5 spots for me. I thought that would carry out a little bit more. I think I'm seeing them more as one-off bats than I am as 5-man stacks.
Yeah, that's totally fair also. Man, Linus just keeps coming. We just got a Cubs lineup. In Fantasy Cruncher, so I'm having trouble reading my data because I keep refreshing as new stacks come in.
But yeah,
I think
feeling.
yeah. But yeah, I don't know how much the bottom line is I don't know how much I'm actually getting to them naturally just based on the way that because when I run my first crunch, I'm just setting flat stack exposures. So I'm setting because there are 12 teams on this slate, I set my flat stack exposures at 10% just to see, which stacks reach that 10% max and which stacks do I not get to. But then I go in later and I recraft my stacks just before lock when I see how the numbers kind of come down, and I spend more time actually who do I want to have less than 10%? Who do I want to have more than 10%? So later on when I do that, if these stacks stay where they are currently, if these top stack odds stay where they are, that's when I'm going to be getting to more of the Nats and more of the Mets just based on the top stack odds. But currently I think that I'm not getting to a ton of either of these teams either. Anything
else for Mets and Nats?
No, I think we kind of covered it.
All righty. Moving it on. Cubs and Brewers. 5.2 run implied total for the Cubs, 5.8 for the Brewers. It's a monster total here. Drew Smiley and Aaron Ashby. I almost said Andy Ashby. That would probably, I assume, be his dad or his uncle. But I would have been wrong either way. No pitching ownership whatsoever coming into Drew Smiley. Ashby, though, pulling some ownership, about 20% on DK, around 10% on FanDuel. He's 7,300 and 7,200 across both of those sites. I'll start with Smiley, I guess, since he's at the top of my list. Don't think you're getting there.
I don't think I'm going to get to any Drew Smiley either.
He came up in a very, very, very small amount of my crunch, so I'm going to skip him. Ashby came up in that pack of Rasmussen, Otto, and Rich Hill, so I don't have too much to add there. I think his current ownership looks proper to me. The $7,300 price tag helps. The total in this game is a bit of a problem. Do you get to Ashby?
Yeah, I'm actually, so my first crunch that I ran, which I'm going to have to re-roll one now because we've actually gotten a lot more information since I ran it, but I'm getting to 30% Ashby, which makes me a little bit uncomfortable. He looks like a fairly neutral play in the top pitchers tool, coming in at 18.7% projected ownership, 17.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 21.3% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. He's got a 26.4% strikeout rate, so that actually looks really good. His last game, he pitched 5.2 innings and threw 91 pitches. So, you know, he's fully stretched out. He has a pretty good strikeout rate, but 1.35 whip on the year. I kind of want to see how things shake out now that we have the lineups, because I think we didn't really know what to expect prior to the lineups coming up, because this is the second game of a doubleheader. So I kind of want to see how these numbers shake out closer to lock. But currently I'm getting to a lot of Aaron Ashby. It's probably more than I want to be getting to Aaron Ashby, to be honest. I'll probably try to get a little bit less, and get a little bit more David Peterson. But yeah, currently I'm actually getting to a fair amount. And he doesn't look like a bad play in the top pitchers tool. As I said, fairly neutral. So I'm happy to get there, but I don't know that I actually want to be above 30%.
I think it's a really good strikeout matchup. I have the Cubs aggregate strikeout rate in this spot at 26%, which is pretty high. Morel, Contreras, Happ. I mean, Wisdom's at 37% coming out of Steamer. The other guys were 27 to 28%. Vasquez, Frazier, all in the mid to high 20s as well. Only guy that doesn't really K a ton is Simmons. He's in the 9 hole. That doesn't really affect you all that much. Limited plate appearances. Or Schwindel at 18%. So the spot for Ashby looks pretty good on paper if you're trying to rack up the strikeouts. Just got to hope you avoid those runs because the total is no joke.
Yep.
Do you like the bats in this game, Cubs or Brewers side? Obviously, I think we're going to be talking a little bit here about the Brewers.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have some interest in both stacks. I know that Ashby also gets crushed by lefties, so I need to look at the Cubs stack here a little bit. But yeah, the Brewers are coming in way over-owned, so they have the best top stack odds on the entire slate, coming in at 21.1% chance to be in the top stack on the board. That is really good. That's really high, even on a 6-game slate. But then they're coming in at 30.5% projected ownership, and they have a 25% chance to be in the top value stack on the board. So I definitely like the Brewers in a vacuum. I want to get to some Brewers. I'm not going to full fade the Brewers. They just have too high odds of being the top stack on the board, but I'm going to be coming in under the field. This is one of those spots. Anytime a team is coming in at 30.5% projected ownership, I'm on a 6-game slate, I'm probably going to be coming in under the field. And that's definitely the case here. So I expect to be pretty well under the field, but I'll probably be, closer to 20% than 10% Brewer stacks, full Brewer stacks. And then I will also obviously have them as one-offs and as secondary stacks more. How are you going to approach it? Are you going to be full stacking the Brewers here, do you think? Or do you think you're going to be avoiding the full stacks or maybe avoiding the team altogether? What's your plan?
First question. Are you all hearing my dog as well?
Oh yeah, I'm hearing.
Okay, just making sure. Somebody's at the door right now, so he is losing his mind, which is aces. He hasn't made a peep all day, just sleeping because he's been running on the beach for 3 days. The moment we start doing this show, he's like, "Ooh, time to start screaming. Gonna be great." Yeah, so
in there.
Fantastic. Anyway, when I ran my crunch for the Brewers, I thought that I was going to get a ton. And I wasn't tied to any ownership or anything. This was just my data. They project really well. They're a relatively cheap stack to get to. They did not come out all that frequently. They came out 5th in the aggregate for me. So I would be lighter and I wouldn't even have to make any sort of natural adjustments for any sort of negative leverage. It's just coming out that way for me. So nice. Yeah, while I do like them and on paper, I mean, a lot of these prices look great. They don't have any, outside of Luis Urias, he's 4,500. Everybody else is sub 4K. You can't really beat it. They're pretty easy to stack up to. You don't have any guys with MPEs, which is kind of a bummer, but nothing too crazy. I think it's just pretty easy to come in lighter than this ownership if they're going to be this heavily owned, in the high 20s, or even some guy like McCutchen at 38 was the last number I saw. It's just, to me, for baseball, that's just not a spot I'm going to be with any sort of volume.
Yeah. It looks like so. I'm looking at the Cubs lineup now, and it's mostly righties. So it is a pretty good matchup for Ashby, just because he's struggled so much with lefties in his career relative to righties. So you have Ian Happ in the 3 spot for the Cubs, who looks really good in the 3 spot. I'm going to have some interest there, but it's mostly righties, which actually makes me more interested in Ashby. If we're going to running out a full righty lineup, maybe I'm okay getting to above the field on Ashby. Obviously, the top pitchers tool will adjust based on these numbers, so we'll see if that is the right approach to go above the field. But that does, just looking at it, gives me a little bit more interest here.
And I have very little interest in Cubs bats. They came in as my 3rd lowest stack. I don't really like the spot against Ashby. The wind and weather helps, that's for sure, but this isn't the same sort of Cubs lineup that we were used to seeing. I have them in the aggregate at a 98 weighted runs created plus. That's a slightly below average offense. That's not even adjusting for Ashby's talent. So I don't really have much interest in the Cubs.
Yeah, and I'm on the same page. They look like they're going over owned in the top stacks tool, 12.9% projected ownership with a 9.5% chance of being the top stack on the board, 9.4% chance of being the top value stack on the board. So just from a full stacking perspective, they look like they are going in over owned. I'll probably have some interest in Ian Happ since he's in the 3 spot, and he'll be batting from the right side of the plate for an Ashby matchup. But other than Happ, not a ton of interest in the Cubs.
No, it's not great. It's not great. Tony A says, wow, Josh is doing baseball. Yep. Unfortunately, they don't run basketball games 24/7, 365. Oh yeah, I'm here.
Happy to have you on the baseball streets.
I'm happy to be back on the baseball streets. I enjoy playing baseball from a DFS perspective. It is my best sport, so it should be a good time for me this summer. So my newfound dedication to baseball should pay off. That's the plan, at least.
Yeah.
You know what else is the plan? Getting people to sign up at awesemo.com using the promo code MLBDD. That's MLBDD. I'd say one word, but that's obviously not a word. That's just 5 letters. You guys should understand what it is, considering this is the deeper dive. You can get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum if you are a new user. And all you have to do is use that promo code or click the link in the description of this video. It gives you everything. This isn't just for baseball. You get projections, ownership, boom busts, top pitchers, top stacks, top whatever for all sports, top golfers, top fighters. We cover everything. We have everything for you with this promo code. Again, MLBDD. I'm pointing at the screen where I see it. You guys don't see me pointing because you see the promo code, but you guys should immediately sign up for awesemo.com. Do it right now. Use that promo code. And hit that like button, by the way. 440 concurrent viewers. I didn't know what was going to be here today on a Memorial Day Monday, but it's not enough likes. 77, not nearly enough. Hit that thumbs up. We need that one up over 100 immediately. This is a holiday. We should celebrate with like buttons on YouTube videos. I think that's how they drew it up from the beginning.
For sure. Yes. I
Something
wasn't
like
listening
that.
that closely.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Trust me, I'm used to that. I do shows with
You're
Adam
doing a
all the
read,
time.
so then
Yeah. No, you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to. Look, Adam doesn't listen when it's actual information, let alone the reads that don't matter. So
I watch enough NBA that I'm aware of that.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's do this. Rangers and Rays. 3.7 run implied total for the Rangers. 4.3 for the Rays. I guess they get a bit of a bonus because Jordan Klein is wearing their hat today. That must be what it is. We've got Glenn Otto, who we've talked about a little bit already, going for the Rangers. Drew Rasmussen going for the Rays. Otto is getting the ownership, though. 26% on DK, 11% on FanDuel. Nothing really coming into Rasmussen. A little expensive. Honestly, slightly surprised that he's not coming up a little bit more. Start wherever you want. Which guy do you expect to have in more lineups, Glenn Otto or Drew Rasmussen?
Yeah, so I've already talked about Glenn Otto a little bit. Now I want to see how much Rasmussen I have, because based on that top pitcher tool, I definitely want to have more Rasmussen than Otto, and that is not the way it's coming out naturally. So I am going to have to do something to adjust here. I'm in my latest crunch. I ran one more once we got a little bit more information. I still have 28% Glenn Otto, 8.2% Drew Rasmussen. That makes me actually kind of like Rasmussen better and Otto a little bit less, or just seeing those numbers and also seeing how they come out in the top pitchers tool. The combo makes me think I'm going to have to give Drew Rasmussen a little bit of a boost, and I'm going to have to cut down my Glenn Otto exposure. And I can't understand why I'm getting so much Glenn Otto. It's not a great matchup against the Rays. The Rays are a dangerous team. He's not a great pitcher. Somehow I'm still getting to 30% Glenn Otto. I'm definitely going to be cutting way back on that. He's coming in at 23.4% ownership with a 16.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. I guess this is the reason I'm getting into a lot of Glenn Otto. It's because he's 6,500. He has a 27.9% chance of being a top 2 value on the board. I just don't really think he has a ton of upside here. So I'm going to be cutting out a lot of my Glenn Otto. 19.7% strikeout rate isn't great. 1.4 whip. Yeah, I'm going to be cutting out my Glenn Otto. Drew Rasmussen, I guess this is also the reason I'm not getting to a ton of Drew Rasmussen naturally, is because he is 10,100. There are cheaper pitchers who have the same amount of upside. He's the most expensive pitcher on the slate. And he's not really a true ace, but 23.7% strikeout rate, 0.98 whip this year. Those are really solid numbers, and he looks really good in the top pitchers tool, coming in at 4.7% projected ownership with a 7.5% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. And more importantly, a 19.6% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. So it's a great matchup with Texas. He's a really solid pitcher. So I definitely have more interest in Drew Rasmussen naturally than Glenn Otto. And I'm going to be cutting back my Otto exposure and trying to get to more of Drew Rasmussen.
I think my projections are just spitting this out exactly how I would want it on paper. Rasmussen coming in at 18% for me, Glenn Otto at 16. I am more than okay with that. Come in a little bit lighter on Otto with that heavy ownership. Come in well above Rasmussen, who looks to be under owned for his current top pitcher odds. I'm very happy that I don't have to make additional changes there. It seems like exactly what I would want. So
it sounds like you're getting exactly the lineups that you should have, just like naturally. You must have a great model.
I do. I must have a great. Hey,
I'm jealous. I got to make all these adjustments.
8 years old at this point.
Wow. All right. Well, it's working.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. We'll see. I'll figure out some way to ruin it by like mid-June. Don't worry.
All right.
It's always like, oh, well, maybe if this will make it a little bit better. And then it's like, oh, cool. I haven't won for a month. Never fails. Never fails. Offenses here, on the other hand. I got the Rangers coming in 4th for me. And I've got the Rays at a crisp dead last. So where do you stand on bats in this one?
Yeah, so this is a spot where I would want to get to more of the Rays than the Rangers. You can find a little bit of leverage if the field is going to be getting to Glenn Otto at 24-25%. Then that's you can gain a little bit of leverage on the field just by going to Tampa bats. Tampa is always a dangerous team. It's in Texas. It's heating up. We're heating up. It's in Texas. This should be a good home run spot. They should be able to score some runs here. Coming in at 7.5% ownership on the stack, 8.1% chance to be in the top stack, 6.8% chance to be in the top value stack. I mean, those are fairly neutral numbers, but I think I have some interest in the Rays. It just makes sense to me that they should be able to score some runs on Glenn Otto. So I think that the Rays are a team that I actually am going to be targeting, trying to get over the field if the field stays where they are currently. And they just, top to bottom, I think you can get to some bats here. They're a dangerous stack. And just looking at my exposures currently to Rays, I'm naturally getting to some at least my lowest owned of any Rays batter currently is Ji-Man Choi. I'm only getting to 2.8%. Everybody else I'm getting higher than that. So I have some interest in this matchup on this team that is typically dangerous, and that makes sense to me. Ji-Man Choi, he just doesn't have kind of the upside that you're typically looking for out of a first baseman, so I think it makes sense that I'm not getting to a ton there. But yeah, top to bottom, they got their catcher friend Francisco Mejia in the 5-hole. That interests me. I love seeing a catcher in the 5-hole. Yeah. I think that I do have some interest in the Rays, and I'm not getting to a ton of them naturally. So I should say in my 500 crunch that I ran, the Rays are not one of my higher owned stacks, but I think that I'm actually going to try to get to more of them than I am currently. And I got to virtually none of the Rangers naturally, which is funny given that I didn't get to any Rasmussen. I did get to Glenn Otto. In my 500 crunch, I got to my highest owned of any Rangers batter in that crunch is Marcus Semien at 1%.
Yeah, so I got a bunch more of the Rangers. They came in 5th for me, which I wasn't totally expecting. The reason I would get more Rays if I were moving forward with this current crunch because of the ownership for Glenn Otto. I would naturally increase some sorting factors for the Rays to add in that additional leverage of the fact that Glenn Otto is pulling ownership. They didn't show up naturally, so this would be an adjustment that I would make after the fact. So while they don't grade out well for me, extra factors make them grade out a little bit more. Sort of the opposite, going the other direction. I'm not all that enamored with the Rangers on paper. They don't seem to grade out well for me. I don't even think they're all that great of a point per dollar play. They just happen to be showing up. They're not even like the ultra cheapest teams either. I don't know what is actually driving their ownership, but I actually think that when I started to build lineups because of their ranks and because of ownership elsewhere, I would be pulling them down. So this game, after we just got done patting me on the back for the model, is basically exactly backwards of what I did.
All right. I'm reading chat right now, and Jordan Klein said that he's never done Xing, and we've got the Awesemo official handle telling him he's never lived. Enjoy seeing that.
Yeah. I wonder
we're
who
in the
was.
MLB streets. Oh, was that you? Was that you?
Yeah, it was me.
That's pretty great. Love that.
When I'm hosting a show, I have the studio screen up so that it always ends up. If you ever see the Awesemo handle talking while I'm on a show, it's me. It could be somebody else as well, but it's definitely also me.
All right.
Which is fun. That's generally speaking, people notice too, because I'll say ridiculous stuff and they're just like, oh, that's clearly Josh. Like
encouraging your producer to do ecstasy.
Well, it's a great thing. It's a happy one.
Sure.
It's a happy one.
Why not?
I always encourage the happy stuff. Happy, yay.
Yeah.
Happy, yay. Jordan, stay away from all the sad stuff. All right. Gotcha. See, now that's not. I don't appreciate you. I don't appreciate that, Jordan. I don't appreciate that, Jordan. See, you're banned. I'm going to time out Jordan Klein quickly. Put a user on timeout. There we go. You can come back in 300 seconds, Jordan.
Jordan Klein was timed out. I like that. Well done.
I wish that there was a producer cam right now for everybody, because you guys would see Jordan just dying laughing.
All I can see is his Rays hat above his hand. Yeah.
I have something I want to say, and I'm not going to say it, Jordan. You're lucky.
You should just say it. You should just say what you mean.
This is one of those that I can't say on one of our channels.
All right, that's fair.
All righty. Anything else for Rangers and Rays?
No, I think we have covered them pretty well.
All righty. We've got about 18 minutes to go before we turn this one over to the live before lock crew. We've got Greg and Eric coming up next, so buckle up for that one. Another hour on this 6-gamer. But we do need to talk a little bit about our sponsor, and that would be Odd Shopper. I legitimately am so excited for what I think is going to be the beginning of the football season, because allegedly the state of North Carolina might have some sports betting. And I am going to finally be able to functionally use Odd Shopper the way that I want to use it. Instead of just talking about it, I can actually put my money where my mouth is finally, because I have no mechanism to bet on sports in a fully legal and non-scary manner. Obviously, I can get to the squirrely books. I don't really do that. I would just like to get to all the books that we have listed here and sign up for all of the bonuses that I will inevitably get. You guys should do that as well. Just immediately, anytime you can sign up through us, do that. You're going to get a ton of extra money, and it's great. If you just go to Odd Shopper, you get everything that you could possibly want at the tip of your finger, and you get the data as well. So I immediately pull up Odd Shopper for MLB bets. The first thing that I see, the number one bet that we have listed, Rich Hill, total strikeouts, under 4.5. We've got him projected for 3.5. Expected ROI 27%. It wins 76% of the time. If you're in agreement, if you were just looking for a second set of eyes, basically, you want to go to Odd Shopper and you're like, I'm not sure where I feel about Rich Hill, and you see that immediately, you can get to that bet incredibly quickly by just clicking a couple buttons. You go right to it, and it's there. We are giving you every piece of data. It doesn't cost you a single cent. You can just go to oddshopper.com to check it out. I love the tool, and sooner than later, I hope I could actually use it and really, really use it, because
I also
it is
can't use
quite
it
an
here
asset.
in Minnesota. I'm in the same page as you. I cannot wait. I guess I have learned that I could go over to Wisconsin, which is only about 30 minutes away. So I could go to Wisconsin and play some bets, but I don't think I'm probably going to do that. I'm just going to stick with DFS until it's legal here.
Yep. We're in the same boat. It's a bummer. It's obviously inevitable clear across the country. Once there's so many, other states are just going to want their money, and it's just going to normalize. So I'm excited. soon enough. Rich Hill, under 4.5 strikeouts. Actually, I should check and see. What do I have him at? Do I have that set up yet?
I mean, neither of us were playing him, so I'm guessing probably not a ton.
Let's see. Rich Hill, strikeouts, game K. Who the hell are they playing? Orioles.
Baltimore.
Orioles. I didn't set up any of my summary pivot tables or anything yet, so everything is moving in a completely slow manner where I have to just like add up individual columns on my own. I like the under as well. I have it at 3.56. So we had it at 3.5, right?
That's pretty close. Yeah.
Nailed it. Happy about it.
Yep,
Happy about it.
That under.
T McBee in chat, 3.59. There we go.
All right.
Nailing it. Anyway, we got 2 more games to go. 15 minutes to do so. Diamondbacks and your defending champion, Atlanta Braves. 4.1 run implied total for the Diamondbacks, 4.4 for the Braves. Zach Gallen, Spencer Strider, Gallen pulling a ton of ownership, 40% on DK, 20 on FanDuel. Strider pulling 14 on DK at just 6,900. Not really getting to him on FanDuel as a public thing. Just 3% there. Start on either side. Do you prefer Gallen? Do you prefer Strider? It seems to me like it's probably Gallen, but I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm going to be getting to a lot of both of these guys. In my 500 crunch, I naturally got to 40% of each. And this is a spot where I think that I am pretty happy with that number. 40% being the cap that I set on all my pitchers. So they both reach the cap that I set on pitchers without, trying to individualize it at all. And I'm totally cool with that. They both have, or I should say, Zach Gallen has some negative leverage in the top pitchers tool. He's projected for 39.2% ownership with a 26.8% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 15.4% chance of being a top 2 value. I kind of explained earlier that I don't care about that as much with the pitchers as I do with the top stacks. So if I get to 40% Zach Gallen in a matchup with Atlanta, who just swings a lot, they swing hard, they swing for the fences, and they miss frequently. They have a pretty high strikeout rate. I'm pretty happy to get to Zach Gallen around 40% against the Braves, even in what is, it's a tough matchup with the Braves. Obviously, they're a dangerous team, but the strikeouts are there, so I like the upside for Gallen. Spencer Strider, I thought I was gonna dislike him. I was like, they were talking about him a lot, talking him up on the early show. I thought he was gonna be chalky just based on he has a really high strikeout rate currently at 38.9% strikeout rate, 1.03 whip. He's got a high strike rate, so I was kind of like, yeah, if he's gonna be chalky, I want to go well under the field on him. Also, he's never pitched more than 4 innings in a game or 71 pitches. So a lot of reasons to kind of be a little bit scared of Spencer Strider, but the field isn't getting there. So if the field isn't going to get there, I think that he's a pitcher with kind of a wide range of outcomes, just given his talent and that we don't really know how many innings he's capable of pitching. I think that he has a wide range of outcomes. So in that kind of scenario, I'm going to let the projected ownership dictate how much of him I'm getting to. And in this spot, he's only projected for 13.6% ownership. I thought he was going to be like 40%, just everything they were saying about him at 6,900 in a matchup with the Diamondbacks. I thought he was going to be super chalky. He's not. So I'm happy to get well over the field. And the top pitcher tool loves him. He's coming in at 13.6% projected ownership, as I said, with a 19.7% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 27.6% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. On DraftKings in particular, where you don't get any kind of bonus for a, what am I looking for? The 6
Quality
innings.
Start.
Yeah, quality start. You don't get any quality start bonus. You don't have to worry as much about whether he's going to get to 6 or 7 innings. He could just pitch 5 innings, get the win, and huge strikeout rate. So yeah, I definitely have a lot of interest in Spencer Strider as well on DraftKings. Do you think you're going to be getting to either or both of these guys?
Gallen for sure. He came up second most for me out of anybody, only behind Walker Buehler. I'm right around the public ownership number. I don't really have much else to add there. Do I like targeting the Braves? Absolutely not. But Gallen's good, so I don't really have much to add there. I'm on the opposite side for Strider. I think the strikeout matchup isn't all that great. I've got the Diamondbacks as an aggregate 21% strikeout rate in this matchup. The top of their order, not exactly a group of huge K guys. Kettle Marte, Peralta, Smith, all sub 20%. And then I don't know how deep he's going to go in the game. I gave him 3 innings, and
really?
That's fine. He's 6,900. I don't have a great feel of how deep he can go or will go into this game, but it doesn't. I don't feel comfortable immediately going to something like 5 innings. I think 4 would sort of have to be my upper bound just for right now. If I'm light there, that's fine. So he came up half the field right now in that crunch at 3 innings. If I went to 4, I'm guessing that I would end up around that like 14-ish% mark. But I don't have a great feel for how deep he can go here. And because of that, I think it's a spot where I'm going to sort of be a little bit different.
Yeah. Oh, so that I thought I was going to come on the show and say the same thing until I saw the ownership, because I definitely I share that concern for sure. He's maxed out at 71 pitches in a game in his third game of the year, fourth game. I don't know. He's gone 69 one time, 61 once. He's never pitched, as I said, more than 71 innings or 71 pitches or 4 innings. So I definitely do share that concern. I don't know. It's tough because the upside is so there. If he just gets to 5 innings, if he can get to 5 innings, if they allow him to go 85 pitches, the upside is there and it's huge. But I definitely share that concern. So I don't know. It's a tough call. I guess just know what you're getting into with Strider. You might be right. If here's what Terry says. I like him for 80 pitches if he's going right. All right. So Terry thinks that he's got at least upside for 80 pitches. That's kind of what I'm hoping for, but it's definitely a concern. So I'm going to be playing him some just due to the low ownership, but I can definitely respect your viewpoint as well. If you think he's only pitching 3 innings, which is a reasonable guesstimate, I think that I would probably steer away in that case too.
I think that I would feel, just like seeing other people talk about it and like having a conversation about it. If I bumped up to like 3.7 or 4 and he would start coming out like right around the field, I think that would make the most sense to me and I'd be comfortable there.
Okay. Yeah, that's reasonable.
From a bats perspective, not huge here on either team. They're basically like both middle of the pack. Clearly a bunch of one-off bats I'm happy to take. Like, give me any Ronald Acuna anytime that I can get him. I think Austin Riley looks totally fine. Ozuna looks fine. Matt Olson looks fine. I just don't really have like a major opinion here. The Diamondbacks and Braves bats to me just sort of show up where they do, and whatever I get, I get.
Yeah, I think that is generally, I feel that way definitely about the Diamondbacks. The Braves, I think I'm going to target a little bit more just based on the top stack tool. I mean, they're such a dangerous team. If they're going to be only 3.7% owned as a stack on a 6-game slate, that just seems too low to me. And the top stack tool kind of backs that up. They're, as I said, 3.7% projected ownership with a 7.8% chance to be in the top stack. I would like to get above the field there just because if they can knock Gallen around early, get him out of the game, it's obviously a spot where they can they're the Braves, so you get rid of the ace pitcher and they can do some damage. So I'll be taking shots on the Braves, try and get above the field, but it's not something that I'm really comfortable with. I don't love targeting Zach Gallen. It's just a matter of the field sees the same thing that we do, that they're playing against Zach Gallen, so the field doesn't want to get there either. They're coming in low owned, and typically those are spots where I'm going to try to be above the field. At least I'm not going to be getting to 20%, but if I can get to 7% Braves, I'd take that.
I bumped up Strider, gave him 2 more outs, and he's coming up basically right on the number of our current ownership. So I'm pretty comfortable there because I don't have the strong lean. Anything else you want to touch on Diamondbacks and Braves?
Yeah, I mean the Diamondbacks, I'll just say they look very neutral in our tools. 4.1% projected ownership, 4.2% chance to be in the top stack, 6.8% chance to be in the top value stack. So they are slightly positive leverage there. It's difficult because we don't know how deep into the game Spencer Strider is going to pitch. He has a pretty high walk rate, so they knock him around. He could be, as you said, he could be out of the game, by the 3rd inning. But then in that case, they're facing the Braves bullpen, which is a pretty good bullpen so far this year. So it's still not a spot you love. I don't know. Nothing that I love from Arizona either. I think that's all we can really say about this game.
There we go. We will close it out now with the LA Dodgers taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. 5.1 run implied total for the Dodgers, 2.9 for the Pirates. Walker Buehler, Zach Thompson. No one's rostering Zach Thompson. Everybody is rostering Walker Buehler. 60% on DK, 40% on FanDuel. And I don't have anything else to add to that. To me, he is very clearly the best pitcher on today's slate.
Yeah, and the top pitcher stool agrees with that. Walker Buehler with a 35% chance of being a top 2 pitcher on the slate. Zach Allen is number 2 at 26.8%. So 8% lower odds for the number 2 pitcher. So yeah, Walker Buehler is clearly the top pitcher on the slate. I'm still going to be under the field just because even though I care less about ownership with pitchers than I do with bats, it's still something that I factor in somewhat. So I'm going to be under the field on Walker Buehler. Maybe I'll allow myself to get up to 50%. So he could be one that, I set a higher cap just because he is maybe one of the most talented pitchers on the slate, and he's in clearly a great matchup against Pittsburgh. So there is a lot to like. I feel like the floor is relatively high here with Walker Buehler. So maybe I do actually let myself get to 50%, and I'll still be under the field at 50%, but not egregiously under the field. Yeah, it's an incredible spot against Pittsburgh. I don't think there's really much more we need to say about that. And Zach Thompson, I don't imagine I'm going to get there. He's 8,500. He's facing the Dodgers. He looks good in the top pitchers tool. Is under owned, but I still just don't imagine I'm going to be getting to any. You can take shots on pitchers that have higher odds of success and higher floors.
Dodger stacks are my second most exposed 5-man. Pirate stacks, not really all that interesting to me up against Walker Buehler, although they do provide some added interest just because of Walker Buehler's ownership. But generally speaking, I want to try to target teams against big ownership when it's not attached to an absolute stud. I usually prefer to do that when it's a price-based play, not a talent-based play. So I don't love getting to the Pirates. I'm more than okay getting to the Dodgers. And I would have assumed a little bit more ownership coming to LA, but for right now, I've got them in 12% of my 5-mans, and aggregate ownership is somewhere around 9. So I'm a little bit higher on the Dodgers than the public, it seems.
Yeah, so I guess here's something that I don't know about the top stacks tool. I assume that it's based on, I know that the odds are based on full team stack, so it's based on all 9 batters in the order in terms of top stack odds and stuff. But in terms of ownership, I'm not sure if that is still based on 5-man stacks for DraftKings or 4-man stacks count or 3-man stacks. I'm not sure what those are, but I imagine just our numbers, it seems really low, and that kind of surprises me. But then I look at the price tag on these Dodgers bats. We got Freddie Freeman 5,500, Trey Turner 5,900, Mookie Betts 6,200, Will Smith 5,100, Chris Taylor at 5,000, Justin Turner at 5,100. So they're just, and Max Muncy at 5,000. And we also don't know the order at this point, but they just have so many expensive bats that I guess maybe people aren't full stacking them. Maybe you can't get to 5 bats really easy, but according to our numbers, they look like they are coming in under owned. So I think it might be worth it to pay up to be contrarian, kind of force in some full 5-man Dodger stacks. It's kind of the approach that I expect I'm going to be taking here. They're just projected for 8.5% ownership, 10.3% chance to be in the top stack on the board. They only have a 1.4% chance to be in the top value stack on the board. But as I've said, I don't concern myself with that number as much on the high end, the expensive teams, just because that's always going to be the case. They're going to have low odds of being the best point per dollar stack, but they can still, put up 20 more runs in the next best stack and still not be the best value stack point per dollar. So I definitely am going to have some interest in the Dodgers here. I think I'll be over the field there. Anything
you want to say about the Pittsburgh Pirates?
Best thing I can say about Pittsburgh Pirates is that they look good in the top stacks tool. 1.1% projected ownership, 1.9% chance to be in the top stack, 6.5% chance to be in the top value stack. I currently have 0 Pittsburgh Pirates batters in my first crunch of 500. I don't think I'm really going to force them in.
We are on the exact same page there. I don't have much to add against Walker Buehler. They are more than 2-run underdogs in this one. Not a great spot in general. 6 games up, 6 games down. We did it. We hit the mark too. Perfect transition into MLB Live Before Lock. Although you guys still aren't hitting the like button nearly enough. Only 119. That number should be way higher. I don't want to give the credit to the Live Before Lock crew. I want to keep that credit right here on the deeper dive. Neil, anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah, hit that like button and check out High Stakes this weekend. And if you have questions for him, hit me up on at PlayerQDFS on Twitter. I've asked for questions for my guest this week, which is Steve Buzzard. I'm actually interviewing him tomorrow, pretty early in the week for that interview. People are on vacation. I'm not going to get a ton of questions, but if you're around, you have questions for Steve Buzzard, hit me up.
Make sure you're watching that show, guys. It's fantastic. Gives you a deeper look into the industry across basically all of the pros that you would want to see talk, and then sometimes guys like me. So enjoy yourselves today. Enjoy the rest of this holiday day. At least you get a short week this week. MLB Live Before Lock is next. Stay here. Don't go anywhere. Stay on this stream.
more hours than anybody's ever worked in the history of everything.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever worked an 8-hour day.
Makes Terry McBride feel as though he's not doing anything on the daily.
Yeah, it's insane. Jordan works 4 days a week, 8 hours. You die of exhaustion. Hello, everybody. It is the Awesemo MLB Live Before Lock. And, it's not that often that we get to do Live Before Lock shows leading up to actual lock. But Eric and I are doing this together. And we're going to be doing this more regularly now because NBA season is winding down. We don't have another basketball game until Thursday. I'm pretty happy with the state of basketball things right now, though, Eric. I have to tell you. But we've got baseball to talk about today. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, how are you enjoying your Memorial Day weekend? And I know Jordan is exhausted and overworked, but how's your day going?
I'm just like Jordan. I've worked since this morning. I did a prize picks this afternoon. I've been grinding the MLB streets, but yet nobody else is working here whatsoever. It's just Jordan Klein. Everybody else is inferior. So I don't really have anything to add other than I'm lazy. He's the hardest working man at Awesemo, and we should just get off it. Well, I should get off my high horse. How dare I think that I work hard?
Yeah, no. Nobody's ever heard of an 8-hour day before. It's something you go back to the beginning of time. Even, when there were people that built the pyramids, even they only had to work 5-hour days. Like this was nothing compared to Jordan Klein. And Jordan, what's the temperature in your place over there? Is the air conditioning okay at least?
Yeah, the beach is really tough over there. Oh God.
Yeah, that's really difficult. When you say, I know for me personally, like I kind of like 68. So I hear 67. I'm like, that's very difficult. So thoughts and prayers with Jordan Klein. We could only hope that it's upward and onward from here. But in the meantime, let's start breaking down some baseball games here. Because we've got, did you play the early slate, by the way? Also,
I did.
I did a little bit, but I did
a lot of props this morning. Guess what? Jordan Klein knows what's up. Logan Webb season, over 5 strikeouts, under half a run on the San Francisco and Philly. And then I got the Gourmand home run. Got that one at plus 340 on top of the over on the prize picks. I mean, it's a glorious day here to be Eric Lindquist. Regardless of what Jordan Klein tries to do to my energy, it's only up from here, baby.
Yeah, and I mean, while you bring that up, we're going to look at some odd shopper and some other bets for the later games. Maybe we can find some, not quite yet, because we do have the DFS slate to talk about, starting with some of these pitchers. And, right off the bat, I guess we should start by talking about some of the chalk pitching options, starting with Walker Buehler. He's going to be the key of a lot of people's lineups, and I can't fault anybody for that. I'm playing a lot of Walker Buehler as well. But how much Walker Buehler is too much Walker Buehler? He's currently projected for 60% ownership on DraftKings. He's projected for 36% ownership on FanDuel. And it makes sense. You look at the other options on the slate, they're either in difficult matchups, they leave a little bit to be wanting, but we've got Walker Buehler in a dream matchup at home against the Pittsburgh Pirates. So how are you going to handle him?
Yeah, I'm going to play a ton of him. I also am going to be begging to the Lord above that I can get 4.5 fantasy points on prize picks for Ke'Bryan Hayes and Brian Reynolds. Either one of the two. I basically have 5-man cards with 3 of 5 already hit going into the evening. And every single one is a 2-man of Ke'Bryan Hayes and Brian Reynolds. I just think that they are kind of undervalued at 4.5. We haven't projected over 8 fantasy points, and it's obviously an event sport like baseball where there's a large range of outcomes for what can happen, or maybe a smaller range considering Walker Buehler's the guy on the mound. But Ke'Bryan Hayes still has a 500 expected slugging. We have a number here down for Brian Reynolds with the platoon advantage here, just a 4.9 expected slugging, but has a long track record of being a decent enough hitter. So I've kind of hedged my exposure to a certain extent just with those two guys, because the rest of the lineup is just dog shit. And you look at Walker Buehler against Pittsburgh, against righties on the season, a 25.2% K percentage and 85 WRC plus. This is not a potent offense. There are basically 1.5 hitters to get by. If you kind of look at Brian Reynolds from this season as opposed to his year-long numbers, you could play as much Walker Buehler as you humanly possibly wanted to. It's only a 19.1% K percentage for him. But if you believe that is going to be sustainable, I also have a lot of ice here in Iceland. Actually, I heard Iceland is very nice and Greenland is covered in ice, according to Mighty Ducks too. But basically, I have some ice to sell you in Alaska or something like that.
Quack. I can't believe you set yourself up for that. You set yourself up for the quack trends. it's been a while. The Ducks have been gone, and I didn't even think they were going to come back, even though we start shows off and people say quack, quack in the YouTube comments. I thought like, hey, we're kind of done with that. We moved past the bit. And then you bring up the mighty Ducks, and how could it
Ducks
not come back?
Fly together. It's fine. I woke up and the pain was gone.
Well, it's knuckle puck time, and I have a good pivot for you off of Walker Buehler, and it's one that I assume you're probably going to be able to get behind to some extent also. Drew Rasmussen is really good, and given the quality of pitching on this slate, I am befuddled by his ownership, Eric. Befuddled, because he is 10-1 on DK. On FanDuel, he's 8,900. So even I looked at the pricing at first, and I started by looking at the DraftKings slate because earlier today I was filling in for Adam for his tournament strategy videos. And I recorded DK first, and then I saw Rasmussen 10-1 on DK, 89 on FanDuel. I thought, all right, I can understand maybe people don't want to pay up for him on DK, but surely he must be popular on FanDuel. Not at all. People only getting to him 3% over on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he only projected for 6% ownership. On a slate where there just isn't that many quality pitching options and it's smaller, I just don't understand it. He's a positive matchup against the Texas Rangers. They have a 95 WRC plus against right-handed pitching. Rasmussen is really good stuff. He's had nothing but success at the big league level, sub-3 ERA this year. All of the peripheral underlying stats indicate he should have an ERA under 3. What am I missing that he is not a popular pitcher on this slate?
I don't know. We talked about him a lot this morning on the MLB strategy show. Terry and I did. Oregon State. I know that that's his alma mater back in 2018. So maybe that's one reason to not like him. The anti-quack quack, whatever the Beaver call would be. I don't know. I don't have any idea. But regardless, I'm with you. Rasmussen, he's just an absolute stud so far this season. And his hard hit percentage has plummeted back from the 50.2% he put up in 2021 to around 41.3. That's a substantial difference. And he's always had a good expected ERA, always found ways to get things done. And now the walk rate has continually gotten better over his 3 seasons. You expect some of these young guys, he's 26 years old. You expect them to get better as they go along if they have enough arm talent. And God, I hate that word. Why do I keep using it today? But his cutter is just pretty darn good. Peeling off of his fastball seems to be something with a lot of vertical drop. I'm with you. I think he should be very popular. This is a Texas Rangers offense that until they went to Oakland, which a lot of teams will succeed against Oakland, hadn't really done a whole lot of anything. So I'm with you. I think for Buehler, it makes sense. He's 9,200, and that's just a glaring misprice for DraftKings purposes. But that's exactly why you do go to Rasmussen. Better K percentage on this season, lots of improvement, tons of fastball spin. I'm completely with you.
Yeah. And I mean, I see some what I call valid pushback in the chat about how he doesn't go super deep into games, which is true, but it's not like he's throwing 60 pitches or anything like that. There's just been games where he hasn't been all that efficient. I don't think he's going to go 100 plus. That's not what we've seen, but he's thrown 87 in each of his last 2 starts. And if you look at it overall, what is his last 6 starts? 6 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings, 5 2/3 innings, 5 innings, 5 innings. I'm not telling you he's going to go out and throw 8 innings or anything like that. I just think he's under-owned, and his upside and his potential for success is just higher than what he's getting owned at. And I think that given the quality of Texas' offense and how well Rasmussen's pitched this year, I think that he's somebody who's just to work in the lineups. And it seems like based on the ownership, that just isn't something that people are doing. And I think the other talking point here is going to be him relative to Zach Gallen, or I guess maybe it should be Buehler compared to Gallen, but I feel better about both Rasmussen and Buehler than I do about Zach Gallen. And this isn't a knock on Gallen, who I like quite a bit. And I think that he's been really underrated as a pitcher over the course of the season. He's just super popular today. He's projected for 21% ownership on FanDuel, nearly 40% on DraftKings. And if I'm going to play one of the chalk pitchers, I just feel a little bit better about going with Walker Buehler than Zach Gallen. While I understand that the Braves offense hasn't been great this year, I think they're going to be better going forward. We've got Ronald Acuna healthy now. Matt Olson starting to hit the ball better. So in terms of these top 3 pay-up options, I'm not saying Gallen is unplayable. He's just third for me amongst the list of pitchers. If I'm going with the chalk guy, like I said, I feel a little bit better about Buehler. And then I just like the low ownership we're getting on Rasmussen. So where do you stand on Zach Gallen relative to the other pay-ups we have?
I always like Zach Gallen. I will say that one of the major deterrents is this is a 6-game slate with limited pitching options, and he's crazy popular. I'm 32%, so I'm a little bit under the field on him. I might take him down even a little bit more against Atlanta. I think you kind of painted out all the pictures for why we should be kind of looking away from it. I find it hard to believe that there aren't, if you're going to get away from Boston ownership, you're going to get away from the Milwaukee-Chicago game. I mean, Atlanta's an offense that can at least kind of compete with the rest of them. You brought up Acuna's presence is a big deal. Even down in the 9-hole, this Harris, the second dude, is going to be very good at the big league level by all metrics. I mean, if you've seen his steamer stuff, if you've seen Terry McBride being the drum for him, that's going to be a guy even in the 9-hole that's going to add some potency that Adam Duvall just hasn't added this season. Riley, Albies on the back half of that order, Matt Olson batting fifth. I mean, top to bottom, there's big bats. And so I think in the desire to get different and trying to find different ways to get away from some of the chalk here, some one-offs, some stacks, I'm going to have to just be higher on Atlanta by default and a little bit lower on my boy Gallen.
Up here it is. I was wondering, I was like, how do we make it 13 minutes into the show without the porn bot popping up? And there we go. Neil Orfield, quick on the trigger figure to get it down. I'm still confused by the business model here because somebody made this bot with no apparent upside. If I was saying to Josh the other day, if there's a link in here involved, I could understand it, right? They've got the perfect demographic set up in our YouTube channel, and I know that they're hitting the right target audience, but they're not selling anything. Pornbot, get on your stuff. If you're going to scam us, at least try to do it properly.
Yeah, if you're on your work Wi-Fi, you're probably not typing naked-HD XYZ dag bro exclamation. You know what? This is actually a targeted ad for Jordan Klein. That's what this is.
That's what it is. Yeah, it's just this is the bot that just dude bro chills, but
dude bro
does it
exclamation
naked.
right off the bat. Oh God, he's not laughing. That makes me sad. Why is Jordan Klein not laughing? It's funny.
Because he's sending me stuff on Snapchat while we're doing the show. He's trying to, he's taking pictures. So I had to join Snapchat because I have a family group chat. I have a family group chat, and my sister's away in Israel for the summer on an internship. So she wants me to be on it so she could send me videos and whatnot. But what I really just get is Jordan now sending me ridiculous nonsense where I'm photoshopped as Shrek during shows. Don't worry. I see it, Jordan. I'm capable of multitasking. I see what's going on.
Waka fart jokes.
Yeah. Well spent time. And here's the other thing, Jordan. If you had a way to put this on camera, like make yourself useful like Tyler, where he's photoshopping the stuff behind me. You're just doing this for me and you. The audience isn't benefiting. Let's talk about the rest of the guys on the slate now, because we've talked about the pay up options. I think everybody knows where we stand on Rasmussen, Bueller, and Gallen now. I really like Rasmussen as a contrarian play on both FanDuel and DraftKings. But then we get into the next tier of guys, and I get that David Peterson's kind of priced around them also on DraftKings and FanDuel a little bit cheaper. But what do you make of the guys like David Peterson, Drew Smiley, Zach Thompson, who are in the next group? Because none of these guys are all that appealing to me.
I mean, can we put Aaron Ashby into the conversation then?
Different price range.
Okay. Well, he's a little bit cheaper. Well, I'm just saying I'm going to him.
Yeah.
So that's my guy. So this entire range is kind of dead to me for the most part. I'm definitely not rostering Drew Smiley in this spot against Milwaukee with the wind blowing out in Wrigley. Just his pedigree, he's got it over a 10-degree launch angle. That's problematic when we saw wiffle balls being hit out of the park this morning. David Peterson, 8,200. He's garnering a little bit of attention. I will say that his number seemed really high. It was at 29.5 for a fantasy score. It's FanDuel comparable over on Prize Picks. I think shorting that seems like a decent enough number, but I don't want to be probably playing too much of him at 8,700 on the FanDuel slate. On DraftKings, looking at him at 8,200. I think it's okay for him to fall into some lineups. He's about appropriately owned, I think, at 18.2%. I just don't really find anybody to be like, I have a real strong stance for them in this entire range. I'm definitely not playing Zach Thompson at 8,500 against a Dodgers offense that, could be problematic. So I find this range to be completely dead. I have nothing more than 8% David Peterson is the most I'm getting to of anybody.
Yeah, so let's go down. Let's talk about your guy, Aaron Ashby, my guy, Aaron Ashby, everybody's guy, Aaron Ashby today, because I think he's going to be very popular as a salary saving pitching option today. He's projected for 14% ownership on FanDuel, making him the third most popular pitcher over there. Right now on DK, he's projected for 26% ownership, also making him the third most popular pitcher on DK. I think there's a good chance that ownership ends up coming up a little bit just because it seems like such a good spot for Ashby. Number one, the Cubs lineup that they're throwing out for today, it sucks. It's a bad lineup. There's a lot of strikeouts to be had. It's watered down. That's to be expected on the tail end of a back-to-back, but What are you going to be doing with Aaron Ashby? I know you like him, but how much do you like him?
I like him quite a bit because if you're going to succeed today in the wind in Wrigley, you better be a ground ball pitcher and 0.8 degree launch angle, 29.5% hard hit percentage, 318 expected slugging with a 26.4% K percentage. His major bugaboo is just the ability to walk people. He does it way too much, 13.5% walks. If he gets those in check, you're looking at an elite pitcher long-term. And so I think that right now in this spot, it's the classic, I want both sides of it. He's at 30% on DK. I'd be surprised if he got steamed up even more. I think a lot of people will end up on the Gallen, Walker, Buehler type combination. So the easiest way to get different is finding a way down to Ashby for 10%, 10% less than Gallen, 30% less than Walker Buehler. Spencer Strider, I think, is going to be a decent option. Talked about him quite a bit this morning as well. That's a guy that, again, Terry McBride just had circled for me for a month plus now. A guy in our year-long league that, my buddy's just an absolute twat, but, whatever else. He's had him for a year and a half, and he just shouldn't be able to because he cheated to get him. But anyway, Spencer Strider, I'll be rostering a little bit. But Aaron, yeah, not that I'm bitter or anything, but Aaron Ashby, all the metrics are there. This Cubs lineup, you're looking at 38% K percentage in Patrick Wisdom. As long as he and Alfonso Rivas, who's around 29% K percentage, as long as those two guys were making the lineup, I thought there would be enough. Nelson Velasquez, I think, will be a strikeout guy as well to add to the mix. You do get Simmons, which sucks because he's a sub 10% guy. He's always been, going back to his Twins days, Angels days. I think he's played for like 90% of baseball teams, but he's always been an incredible contact guy, even though he's terrible at hitting. So that's frustrating, but top to bottom, this Cubs lineup is not that imposing. I think a ground ball pitcher could definitely succeed against them.
What are you going to do when you see this guy the next time you see him after cheating in your fantasy baseball league?
I mean, I'm probably going to slap him in the face and get a 3-day suspension, which is longer than my 2-day suspension for getting naked on camera here at Awesemo, right?
Yeah, well, we don't resort to violence. Close mishaps happen all the time, but violence, I think, well, actually, that's not even because, Alex is a very well-regarded street fighter. He's never lost a fight. He's killed multiple men with his bare hands. So I don't know. Maybe that is how we settle stuff around here. I don't like how he's cheating in your league, though.
Jordan Klein.
What?
Why are you the way that you are?
What did he do?
They're up Tinkerquist just for no reason other than to be an a-hole.
Is Jordan the one cheating in your fantasy baseball league?
No, it's not.
How did somebody cheat to get so I want to talk more about Spencer Strider in a second, but first, how did somebody cheat to land Spencer Strider in your league?
Yeah, so he basically changed the rules the week before and nobody knew about the rule change. He apparently sent out an email. It didn't get to anybody's email. And the rules got changed and he picked up, this is actually ironic. He got Alex Kirilloff and he got Spencer Strider at like the same time. One panned out, one did not.
Yeah, sounds like he's got a knuckle sandwich coming his way, if you ask me. This guy
Jordan Alvarez, number 2. Let's go.
So I want to ask you more about Spencer Strider because I like his talent a lot. I think he's potential to be a very good pitcher. But what is your expectation for workload today? Because he has not worked very deep into games as of late. His recent start, or not recent starts, his recent outings, he went 2 2/3 innings against the Phillies. Before that, 1 inning against the Marlins, 1 inning against the Brewers, 2 innings against the Brewers, 1 inning against the Padres. So realistically, can we expect him to go more than 3 or 4 innings today?
I mean, he had 71 pitches back in April. He's definitely been thinned out a little bit as time goes on. Like he definitely has had fewer and fewer pitches, but now I think he could instantly go 70 plus. Like I think that's probably in play for him. He pitched 5 days ago. I think that he's got a long enough break there where it's gone from 20 to 46. I think he could probably see 70. He went from 24 to 71 in a 4-day rest back in April. So like, I don't understand why everybody's completely exaggerating about what they could or couldn't see. 24 to 71. That was the difference on April 7th to April 11th on a 4 days rest. This is 5 days rest. He's going from a bullpen type scenario to a starter. I truly believe 70 plus is in the equation just based on that. So I'm going to be rostering more Spencer Strider as a result if people are going to have that concern. Sure, there's maybe a larger range of outcomes, but The price allows for me to feel better about it. The K percentage allows me to feel better about it. The ownership allows me to feel better about it. And it's only a 6-game slate with 12 starting pitchers. So all in all, I think all of those risks are mitigated by the fact that he's a really good pitcher in a really good spot.
Yeah, I'm just so for me, I prefer getting Ashby where I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to Rasmussen. I hear you. I think there's some upside in Strider. I think he's worth being in the player pool. I just hesitate to go too heavy on him because I'm concerned that he pitches like 3 or 4 innings, and then I'll be like, oh, he didn't go very deep into the game. Kind of limits his fantasy upside, which is kind of what I think is the most likely scenario. But there's clearly upside if he gets stretched out, and it's hard to know how deep he's going to work into the game. Now, I've got a bone to pick with Chuck Deuces here in chat. He's saying that he's seen Alex Baker do Dance Dance Revolution. He's not killing anyone in a street fight. Let me tell you something. If somebody pulls up to you and they show up footwork like that, dude, no. You're not messing with somebody like that. He starts dancing like that in front of you. You're going to be confused. You're not going to know what's going on. Next thing you know, high kick to the head. It's all a distraction. It's a feint. You're going to be looking one way. It's like a magician. You look one way, he throws a strike another way. He knows what he's doing. Multiple people destroyed with his bare hands. He's as good as it gets.
You guys don't even know. You don't know unless you know, and we know. Okay.
If he wasn't close,
I saw the man just murder it at the FanDuel. Let's see, fantasy baseball world championship in the parking lot of Mile High Stadium. The man was throwing footballs. If that was a baseball at your skull, you're dead. You're dead.
Absolutely. And the other thing too is if it was not for his close relationship with Khabib Nurmagomedov, he absolutely would have been the lightweight champion years ago. But there was a conflict of interest.
I'd retire.
Yeah,
I'm done.
Absolutely. And then he just fell into playing DFS. So what's the need? If you could, why do you need to kill people with your bare hands when you can make money playing DFS?
It's a great
Is there anything
question.
Anything else a pitcher that's worth standing out to you today?
What a segue. No, that's all I got.
All right. So I think Rich Hill is somewhat interesting just because the Orioles are so bad against left-handed pitching. The Orioles this year, they're 29th in WRC plus against lefties. They also have the 3rd highest strikeout rate in the league against left-handed pitching. So here are the concerns with Rich Hill, and there's significant ones. Number 1, he's not good. Number 2, he hasn't worked all that deep into games this year. Here's the positive, though. He's gone 5+ innings in 3 of his last 4 starts. He went 5 innings last time out. 3 starts ago, he went 6 innings. Low-key, I kind of think that the Red Sox are starting to stretch out Rich Hill a little bit. I think there's potential for length here. And once again, it's just such an easy matchup against the Baltimore Orioles. There's no ownership going to Rich Hill. He's very cheap on DraftKings and FanDuel. So not a core player by any means, but I think he is worth being in the player pool at least.
Well, high key, I'm probably not going to do it, but I get it.
Fair enough. I think I probably feel similarly about Strider as you do about Rich Hill.
Yeah.
There's similar concerns there. I could see the reason to like upside for both of them though. Guys, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Eric, I know you said you hit on some bets earlier today. So I want you to pull up OddsShopper, try to find some bets that you like from the later slate of games. If you guys haven't checked out OddsShopper, this is how easy it is to use. You go over to Awesemo.com. We got the OddsShopper tab on the top right. Or you just go to OddsShopper.com. You find the best bets on any slate. It takes like 30 seconds. I say 30 seconds because that's what's in the read, but you could do it in much less. You just go over to the site, bada bing, bada boom, you find bets. Eric, what have you found in that short amount of time since I set you up?
Well, Rich Hill sucks. So under 4.5 strikeouts looks really good. Over on OddsShopper, that's one that I've got circled for the prize picks purposes. You can do the C parlays card as well. I also really like, so I've been really trying to get acquainted for how to go about attacking home run props over on prize picks. And so this is a fun kind of conversation point because I think you can basically add up the expected win percentage of 3 guys to homer from the same team rather than try to figure out what the true odds would be, mainly because I want to go based off of what our data is saying guys are to hit a home run. And Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, and Will Smith, if you add up their expected win percentages, over 55% total to be hitting a home run in this spot. That feels better than a -110 type proposition. So going up against Zach Thompson there, I like the over of 0.5 total home runs. I think if you individually want to bet a home run on the board, you're looking at a guy like Mitch Garver taking the under of something like that. And you're just getting like -385. I mean, that's just absurd. -385. Generally, you're seeing -500 plus for a lot of those. So if I'm going to combine maybe 2 or 3 of these props together to maybe get like a minus 110 payout on the total home runs. Shorting a guy like Mitch Garver, it doesn't look that appealing at minus 385, but you put 3 of those together. I think that's a fun way to sports bet and put a decent card together.
What you just brought up from a statistic standpoint, you're just adding the numbers together, is going to drive me crazy. That is not, there's a way to do it with OddsShopper. This is the proper mathematical way. You should be multiplying the odds of the 3 guys to not hit a home run together. And that's how you'd find the appropriate odds of all 3.
Why would I do that? Because the odds aren't the implied idea. So basically what I'm saying is that we're projecting whether or not they hit a home run, regardless of what the odds are. And we're trying to find the inefficiencies in the lines.
But you can't just add them together.
What, the expected win percentages?
Yeah,
if it's a single variable event, like if it's a single variable event and I get what you're saying, because that would be weird because you'd have 9 batters. You can't necessarily add them all together. But I've been piecing together also like the implied actual odds. So if they're plus 320 to hit a home run, plus 300 and plus 280, that's an average of plus 300. Would that make it an even bet? Would that be a plus 100 type scenario? Like, that doesn't make sense to me.
So let's say let's say 2 players are 50% likely to hit a home run on a slate. You wouldn't say that they're 100% then.
No, correct. But
so
that's
the issue. That's the issue with adding them together.
Got it. Okay. Well, regardless, I'm looking at them as having mostly better than plus 300. Mookie Betts is like plus 270, plus 275 at different books to hit home runs today. They had a Sports Center feature this morning. Apparently they're picking home run calls on Sports Center now. What a time to be alive. But I think it's a beautiful thing because the world's changing. But I was trying to figure out how to go about putting the math together because all 3 batters are correlated to the same pitcher to a certain extent. Obviously, if the game environment is good or if the pitcher is bad, those are all positives for the same core of batters. So you can't just go 1 for 1 for 1 on the 3 individual lines and say that they're equivalent because you have 3 different players. But I'm trying to figure out how to go about it. I just really like the over of Betts, Turner, and Will Smith tonight. And generally, I'm looking at shorting home run props.
Yeah, no, I haven't done the math in here, and by the way, I didn't mean to call you out or mean to.
No. I'm glad.
I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to a better mathematical way to do it because if you just add it together, then you'll be like, oh my god, they're 120% likely to homer today. If you're at so like that's the flaw in it. That's why you have to multiply the other side.
Yeah, exactly. I guess for me, it comes down to like, what's the likelihood of the entire team hitting a home run against an individual pitcher? If you go 1 through 9 and you're getting the 3, I mean, obviously Max Muncy isn't in the lineup. You have a lot of power that is in the back half of the lineup. But for the most part, the 3 most likely hitters from the Dodgers to hit home runs today, according to books, are Betts, Turner, and Will Smith.
Yeah, and let's see. So I'm going to give out a bet here also. It's actually one that I believe Alex had posted about earlier as well. But Aaron Ashby over 4.5 strikeouts. Now that we have this Cubs lineup coming out, it's watered down. Seiya Suzuki was just put on the injured list. I think there was some hope that maybe he would be back soon. Finger injury the other day, he stole a base, and I'm pretty sure it was sliding into second. Either he bent it awkwardly or somebody stepped on his finger, whatever it was. He has a ring finger injury. He's on the injured list now. This is a watered down Cubs lineup that already was not expected to be great to begin with. Aaron Ashby is a pitcher with some strikeout upside. A 4.5 strikeout prop. I like taking the over on that. Love it. Aaron Ashby, by the way, in limited amount of time that we've seen him in the big leagues this year and last year, 27.8% strikeout rate overall. 4.5 is a low number against this shitty Cubs lineup. It's 4.5 on Prize Picks. I'm adding it to the card. Thank you, Greg. Nice. Ehrenberg. All right. I like it. Do you want to go to, no, we'll skip past it. Any other bets you want to point out? If not, we will move on. No, I'm going to continue. I should have just DM'd Alex Baker. I actually had an impulse to just ask him today and be like, how do I calculate this out together for these trio on home run picks because he's going to know instantly. He understands the individual probabilities of it, but I'll tell you how I would do it. And if you want to walk through it right now, it'll take. Yeah. Like it's 6 games. We have 3 hours of content we've already put together on these 6 games. So it shouldn't be too hard for the people to figure it out. I'd like to walk through the math on it. Okay. And we could do it using OddsShopper also. So The first thing I would do if you're on MLB bets, I would click on the Los Angeles Dodgers. And then Sorry, because I don't remember all the players off the top of my head. It was Trey Turner.
Yep.
All right, so Trey Turner, and I'm going to pull up the calculator app on my phone too, because who doesn't have that as a go-to app on their phone?
Yeah.
You know, if you're not a real nerd. So
Yeah,
Trey Turner.
I was trying to do it today. I was trying to figure out the best way to do it. I was Googling implied probabilities and all this shit.
This is what I think would be the best way to do it. So Trey Turner, we have with a 14% chance at a home run. So I multiply 0.86. And then what is who's next?
Mookie Betts.
Okay, Mookie Betts, we have as a 19% chance to homer. So I multiplied 0.81. And then who's the last player?
Will Smith.
All right, Will Smith, also 19% chance. So times 0.81. So I come up with the odds of so 44%.
So you'd be looking at shorting it.
I would say that it's probably just a stay away.
Okay. Well, yeah, 0.44. I mean, for me, you got to look at like the game environments for certain things. And I know for a fact, because I've been shorting a lot of these. This is one of two basically that I've seen in the last week where I kind of like the over on the home runs, but I was trying to figure out if there was a way to proof it. Just, as I was piecing it together for the video. And so I didn't end up picking it for part of my prize picks video today, but I definitely think long-term shorting these home run picks are going to be the right approach going forward. I mean, you get Mountcastle, Mancini, Santander against Rich Hill. You talked about how bad they are against lefties. Now, you can be bad against lefties and still have pop and still have decent home run probabilities. So it's not like a 1-for-1 type thing, but I'm going to do some more work on it, try to get better at being able to identify if there's any edge to be had there. But as you said, 0.44, that does not sound enticing.
It's close to a 50-50. And then also, who knows if some of the numbers are getting rounded or whatever. But, I think there's individual cases where I'm sure we could find value. I would just have to look at all of them and kind of find a good way to aggregate all these numbers and maybe build it into a prize picks thing. But yeah, I'm sure that there's certainly ways that you could look at some of the data we have on the site and find good home run props. But we've got some super chats coming in now. And I think this would be a good time to also start to transition to talking about the top stacks we like today. Here we've got Jordan Lockhart. In all honesty, let's help people out. Is it best to stack 2 4-player stacks together or to do a 4-player stack and random 4 other players? So Jordan, are you asking for FanDuel or DraftKings? But either way, I'm going to say how I like to build my stacks. On DraftKings, I make 5-man stacks. On FanDuel, I usually make 4-3 stacks. Yep. Sometimes those will become 4-4s, but I won't necessarily force it. Same thing. If I make a 5-man stack on DraftKings, I won't force it with a 3-man stack back on the other side. But for me personally, that's how I like to approach it. Is I make 4-3 stacks on FanDuel. I make 5-man stacks on DK.
Yeah, 5-man stacks on DK, and I've truly given up. If you listen to the High Stakes podcast with Neil Orfield, he had Bro on talking about how he got away from, I believe it was Bro. Correct me if I'm wrong, Neil. I saw him in chat there earlier, but I've been listening to a couple of those. Definitely check those out on the Odd Shop or on the Awesemo YouTube channel. But he talked about how he just basically went to building straight out 5-mans with no regard for 5-2 or 5-3. And I've had some better results here in the recent weeks. I ran into a little bit of a rut for a couple of weeks, and I think I was forcing in too much 5-2, just kind of looking at what other players were doing. It seems like 5-2 has been very, very popular. And just by going 5 and then opening up the rest of the board, you basically give yourself shots at some of the best hitters, especially if there's like a value pitcher on the board, trying to mix up your one-offs and trying to figure out who, some of your favorite batters are. You can move them to the top of the board and not have it force in another batter alongside them on the same team, especially a team like Washington, where I pretty much am looking at playing Soto and nobody else. It's definitely useful, and I think it has a lot of utility going forward. So I'm doing strictly 5-mans with nothing else that I'm thinking about on Fantasy Cruncher, and then FanDuel, I'm with you. I find 4-3 to be the most useful. We don't have a CSV for it, so it's a lot of back testing and just seeing what other people have that works. And 4-3 seems to be, I believe, the best way to do it.
All right. And we have I think we generally build lineups the same way. And if you're making 4-4 lineups on FanDuel, that's also not an issue. I've personally just found more success making 4-3 lineups for myself. Super chat from Corey Randall. Thoughts on a Cub stack for the money? Seems like everyone likes Ashby, might be the play. So, I mean, to an extent, I agree with you. I think Ashby's going to be popular. He doesn't have that much experience in the big leagues. There's certainly reason to think he could get hit hard here. But still, I'm not going to prioritize the Cubs lineup just because I don't think it's a great lineup that they're throwing out there. It is favorable hitting conditions. We saw a bunch of runs scored in the early game. So over the course of a bunch of lineups, sure, you could take shots on the Cubs as a stack, but it won't be a priority for me. It's not something I'm playing in single entry lineups. But what about you, Eric? Would you be feeling okay playing a Cubs stack in a what we'll call a single entry lineup?
Yeah, I'm not stacking them up a whole lot. I'm playing a lot of one-offs. I think Morel at 3,300, just it's impossible not to play a little bit. Him and Wilson Contreras at a catcher position that I think both of them just long-term already have. I mean, Wilson Contreras has a very long track record of being very good. Morel constantly leading off for this team. Think he's going to be pretty decent going forward. So I'm happy to get to those two guys specifically. Ian Happ as well didn't play in the early session of game or the early game. Now he's playing on the second half of this doubleheader. I think he's all right, but you kind of said it. The rest of this lineup is just not appealing to me. I don't find a lot of desire to go roster Schwindel. Patrick Wisdom has popped, but again, we're talking about a guy who has nearly a 1 degree average launch angle. And then a bunch of guys who don't hit the ball hard outside of Contreras, outside of Wisdom. Morel's just a decent enough hitter that I think you can roster him regardless, and he's cheap enough. But yeah, I'm trying to get away from some of the ownership because I believe Ashby's just a good pitcher.
By the way, the other thing too, the Cubs are very popular today.
Yeah.
I don't know what site that Corey's playing on because he didn't elaborate, but I'll just read off some of the top stack odds on both sites. The Cubs are projected for 11% ownership on DraftKings today. That makes them the third most popular stack on the slate. So there are more people rostering the Cubs today than people are rostering teams like the Dodgers or the Mets, who are both in pretty good spots. So it's not like you're playing a contrarian stack either. I understand the leverage standpoint if Ashby's going to be popular, which I get the sense he's going to be, but it's not like people aren't playing the other side of that game either. If you're talking about FanDuel, the Cubs do look under-owned on FanDuel. We have them as one of the top leverage stacks over there, where the difference is DK, like I just said, they're projected to be the third most popular stack. Well, on FanDuel, they're projected to be the sixth most popular stack. So I do think they're better looking on FanDuel than they are on DK.
Yeah, look at that. Who just said that? Chuck Deuces, Ashby, high ground ball kind of neutralizes the weather. That's exactly what I'm getting at. Look at this. Look at this. I love YouTube chat. Sometimes you guys surprise me. It's beautiful.
You know what else neutralizes the weather? Strikeouts. And we like Darren Ashby over 4.5 strikeouts per some of the data we have over at Odd Shopper. That was a bet that we had winning. Let me see. What was the percentage chance we were winning on? 77% of the time over 4.5 strikeouts for Darren Ashby.
Many times.
I wonder what I'm going to check something. Let's see what the alternate lines are on here. Maybe we could ladder this also. While I pull this up, we'll move on and talk about other stacks. But all right, so we've talked about some of the merits as a Cub stack. They look better on FanDuel than they do on DraftKings. FanDuel kind of under-owned, DK a little bit over-owned. But who are the teams you're getting to most frequently as a stack on DraftKings?
Boston. I get why Milwaukee's as popular as what they are. Actually, just slightly negative leverage going their direction here, but I find Boston kind of unavoidable going up against Tyler Wells, and it's a 6-game slate. I think there's just some batters that are going not underappreciated, but I would say under-owned relative to this slate. I do think Milwaukee ends up being very, very popular, and I'm just kind of being sensitive to what we saw earlier today. Find it hard to believe people who played early DFS didn't recognize how far the ball was going for anybody who rostered up against that Cubs rookie making his debut. So I think we have to be looking at Milwaukee to a certain extent, but I just like full stacking the Red Sox a little bit more. Kike, for some reason, is under 15% coming off of a slate yesterday where he was mega chalk. Only had the one jack, but 14 points. I will take that. 3,800 for him leading off. Verdugo has been very bad this season, but I do expect some positive regression again eventually. He was one of the best young prospects for the Dodgers. He was part of the acquisition to get bets. He's been a decent enough piece for them throughout the playoffs last season. It's just kind of off to a rough start, but I'm expecting positive things for him. I hate that his odds are just so long to hit a home run on a day like today, because you'd think against a righty, this would be batting fifth, a spot to go really overweight to a 7% Alex Verdugo, but just he's going to be a main piece of the stacks that I'm putting together there. And even Franchi Cordero, going back to his times, now a 203 ISO on the season. I just think there's enough guys in this Boston lineup that are coming in under-owned, whereas everybody on the Cubs side, for the most part, that you want to get to, and for sure from the Milwaukee side, they're coming in with such high ownership. I'll just take my shots taking the 5-man of Boston. They still have a decent implied total compared to Milwaukee, so or basically the exact same team total. So I'm going to take the Boston side.
Yeah, I like Boston as well. I've been underweight to Boston a bunch of slates in a row now, though, because they end up being so popular in a lot of these slates. I understand they're projected for a little bit less ownership today. Everybody's rostering Milwaukee. So we'll talk about Milwaukee in a second, but while we're on them as well, I want to talk about their pitcher, Aaron Ashby. One other thing to bring up, some alternate lines on him. So we have Aaron Ashby projected for 6.1 strikeouts, 6+ strikeouts for Aaron Ashby, plus 164, 7+ plus 340. So I think those are some good bets to look at as alternate lines as well. But now when it comes to the Milwaukee Brewers, this shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody who's listened to you and I talk about baseball. The Brewers are in a very good spot. Everybody is playing the Brewers. When there's a team that's going to be this popular and this negatively leveraged in our tools, I end up coming in underweight to the field on them. It's not to say that I think it's a bad spot for the Brewers. If you play cash games in baseball, load up on Milwaukee, try to jam these guys in. But for tournament purposes, I tend to want to be underweight to the field on them. And actually the same goes for the Boston Red Sox with me as well, because these are the two most negatively leveraged offenses that we have in our data today. So I'd rather look elsewhere. I'd like to go to the Dodgers. I'd like to go to the Mets, just teams that have similar odds of being a top scoring team that are picking up less ownership. So for today, we have the Red Sox projected an 11.5% chance to be the top scoring team on the slate. That's really good. It's the second best odds, but I could play the Dodgers with an 11.1% chance to be the top stack, which is, fairly similar to 11.5%, but I'm getting 3% less ownership there. 10.4% chance for the Mets to be a top stack, but only 9% ownership. It's just these little leverage points that I think kind of make sense, particularly for somebody who plays single entry, where I assume the single entry ownership is going to be really heavily weighted towards the Brewers and the Red Sox. So I know you said that you like Boston. It's a good spot for them. I don't really have issue with it, but do you have any concerns with the ownership when it is the most negatively leveraged team in the top stacks tool?
Boston? No, because I think kind of what you said, I look at the ownership of all the batters from Milwaukee, and then I look at them from Boston. And if I'm avoiding certain guys in the Boston lineup, I can kind of find ways to piece it together to be contrarian. So I think amongst the two most popular stacks, which those two are, just give me the Boston side of it here. The Cubs are about appropriately owned, but that's, a little bogus because the only batters that I want to roster at the top of it anyway, looks like Contreras is the only guy getting any kind of major attention on DK from that grouping. And then you brought up the Dodgers. How many times do you get the Dodgers at flat leverage, negative 1.6% leverage, but 1 through 9, I have no qualms about piecing together every single hitter that shows up in that lineup. Edwin Rios might be my prophet. Like I might worship at the idol of Edwin Rios going forward and now and forever, batting 5th again in this lineup. I feel like I'm overweight to this guy every single time. And I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because isn't he batting really well against righties? Oh yeah, he is. So we should probably keep playing him with his 559 or 279, 319, 559 slash line, 6 homers and 72 plate appearances, his last 72. That's just ridiculous kind of stuff. So I'm getting to a lot of Dodgers as well.
Yeah, I like the Dodgers. And then I'll also point out, at least on FanDuel, the Red Sox are still negatively leveraged, but not quite as much as they are over on DraftKings. It's not a fade for me. It's just a team to be underweight to. The Brewers, I do think, warrant being pretty heavily underweight to. And then I just hope they're not the top scoring team. If they're the top scoring team, screw me. It just won't be my night. That's the way these things go in baseball. It happens with Coors Field games all the time. There's a lot of times where it's like, oh, this team's in Coors Field. They're projected to score 6.3 runs is their implied run total, but they're projected for 30% ownership. I'll end up going underweight on those spots. Sometimes it works. A lot of times it doesn't work, but the times it does work, it pays out a lot greater than not. So for me, on the high end, I'm gravitating towards the Mets as a team that I like quite a bit. Once again, just not projected for all that much ownership relative to the other top scoring teams, but similar top stack odds to teams like the Dodgers and the Red Sox. We're just getting a lower ownership share on them. Here's the rub. Eric Fetty's pitched pretty well this year. He has a 3.55 ERA of 4.17 FIP, but I do have to lean back on just looking at previous numbers for Eric Fetty, and the guy's been shit for a while now. Like he's never been successful at the big league level. And I don't really think there's that much reason to think that all of a sudden he should be this improved. And something that does help back this up, Zips has him projected for a 4.81 ERA the rest of the season. Steamer has him at 4.64. So I'm expecting regression to come with Eric Fetty. The Mets have one of the best offense in baseball against right-handed pitching, 120 WRC plus against righties, the second best mark. The only team better is the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that's my contrarian stack today. Is going to be the Mets on the high end to get away from some of the ownership on Milwaukee and Boston. How do you feel about the Mets?
I feel okay about them. I mean, you're getting Guillorme, if I may, Guillorme hitting leadoff, gaining quite a bit of attention there as a piece of savings. So I'm trying to get away from that. It's 17% we're looking at for his current ownership. That just feels a little bit high on the top end for me. I think the guys that you want to get to are Marte, sub 15%, and of course Lindor. Anytime he's going to be sub 10% on a 6-game slate, he can just go out and win you the shortstop position. It's basically him, Trey Turner, Wander Franco, kind of a nice contrarian option to get to on the top end. So I'm looking at shortstop specifically where I'm trying to move some of these one-offs to the top of my board. Lindor is showing up in a handful of lineups over the field for him. I've currently got 22% of him. So that's a guy that I currently like a lot more than the field does. Anytime that I see a hitter like him at a specific position that I just think is going underappreciated, I tend to boost them up.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then also one other thing I actually did want to circle back to on Red Sox stacks. There are ways to stack them and be contrarian because well, first of all, there are some lower owned pitchers that we like today. You could roster them with, a Rich Hill. There is a little bit of correlation with a win bonus there. And then also Rasmussen, who you and I like. But then something else too, Devers is projected to be super, super popular on both FanDuel and DraftKings today. I think if you make any Red Sox stack that does not include Devers, I think you're going to have a pretty different looking lineup there. So I think that is something else to consider. If you're stacking the Red Sox, look at guys like Verdugo, maybe throw in Frenchie Cordero at the end of the lineup, and that would make it look a little bit different. Is that something you're considering in your Red Sox stacks?
You were listening to me, right? I said that was the main reason that I like them a lot more than I like getting to Milwaukee, was that you have opportunities to get different from the field in such a prominent way. And I know we're both constantly doing our own stuff as we're tweaking things in our own lineups. In baseball, there's just a lot of fun things that you can do in order to try to get different, just if you know what you're doing with Cruncher. And one of my favorite things is building out my one-offs. I basically have an entire sheet. You can go in and just pick out your one individual stack and you can multiply that over and over and over again. So you only get those types of one-offs. You can take out a lot of 9 hitters that'll show up at 2K and, find ways to get a little bit different in those regards, which again is one of my favorite things to do, that I feel like I'm being efficient and I feel like I'm working a little bit harder than most people at MLB DFS is how I go together putting up the stacks. Cause I just don't believe many people actually do it. When you go through some of the lineups, even some of the winning lineups, and you look at their portfolio of players, they generally have 15 lineups that somehow aren't 5-man stacks. They somehow have one-offs that are just abysmal. And I get it. Like, you have to still have exposure to the back end type lineup guys and those types of value. But if you take the time to go through and build out your one-offs, we don't have many opportunities to do actually these live before lock shows. I think we'll have more now that NBA is kind of dwindling down when we just have the finals. But I think that is the number one thing you can do to change your MLB DFS game right now is figure out how to actually make your stacks different rather than pretend you know how to make your stacks different.
Yeah. And like I said, I think one of the most realistic ways to make the Red Sox stack different today would just be making lineups with stacking the Red Sox that don't have Devers. You play somebody else in there, or if you are going to have Devers, maybe throwing in a lower owned guy. But that was really where I was coming from is would you be willing to make Red Sox stacks without Devers?
Absolutely. This isn't like Byron Buxton where there aren't a whole lot of other batters that are going to add. I mean, they've had decent enough outings without Buxton, but they're definitely a more appealing team when you get one of the best hitters in baseball up there. You can say the same thing about Devers. I've been seeing a lot of people with 20-1 Devers tickets that are floating around right now, being like, we're about to get hot in Boston. He's on a rampage for the last month. He has opportunities to continue to push it. And I think there's a lot of viability to that. But for the most part, he's 6K. He gets 14. You're still not necessarily dead at the position playing every other batter and getting exposure everywhere else because he's massively popular. So yes, if I'm playing Devers, I'm finding ways to play a Franchi Cordero or, if Alex Verdugo is a guy that I just actually hope is efficient today because I've got a pretty big stand on him in those stacks. I've got right north of 25% of him. I'm probably going to take that down a little bit here before lock, but He was a guy that just instantly, you see 7.4% and Franchi sub 5%. I don't want to roster Jackie Bradley Jr. So those other two guys kind of necessities for me to get different.
Yeah, and if you guys want access to all the tools like the Top Stacks tool, Top Pitchers tool, as well as tools for basically every single DFS sport out there, you could sign up right now if you're signing up for an Awesemo Plus membership for the first time. Using the promo code MLB Live, that'll get you 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Like I said, get you access to stuff like the Top Stacks tool, Top Pitchers tool, pretty much all the tools that Eric and I both use to build baseball lineups. And there is no sport that's more data-driven than baseball. I don't know what I would do without some of this stuff. So stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. Let's talk about some of the really contrarian stacks because, you know, the ones that we've talked about to this point are all really popular. And even though I said I'm looking at a team like the Mets for leverage, you know, realistically, this is not a team that's going to be in 2 or 3% of lineups. They're picking up some popularity. I just think not quite enough. Is there any team that you're looking at really off the beaten path that you think makes sense as a super contrarian team to stack?
Yeah, I like the Diamondbacks. I don't know that contrarian's probably not the right word. So I like Spencer Strider. I've already given you all the cases that I like Spencer Strider. There's also the flip side of it where you get an Atlanta bullpen game, and that's not always ideal to be going up against a bullpen game. But I will say that this Arizona lineup just has some hitters that I think go undervalued on pretty much every single slate. Specifically, I'm looking at a guy like Varsho, who people do play, and that's all well and good. But you start getting into the heart of the order. It's a brutal thing that Christian Walker isn't in that lineup today, but Josh Rojas batting second now. That's a decent enough spot with a 469 expected slugging against a righty. Pavin Smith, 448 expected slugging. I would say the Diamondbacks are one of the surprise teams we've had in baseball. And I will say they have decent enough pitching with Zach Allen. Madison Bumgarner has gotten through unscathed somehow this season, but this lineup has performed above expectation for me. And going forward, are they, some dynamite offense? No, but if they're going to be sub 5% on a 6-game slate, they at least have individual hitters that I really like to get to, more so for FanDuel purposes than for DraftKings purposes.
Yeah, it's hard for me. This one would be FanDuel specific.
Yep.
Let me see actually if the ownership's changed since we started. But at least earlier today on FanDuel, the Braves are projected for very, very minimal ownership today. And once again, not a great spot against Zach Allen, but trying to say where can we find any offense that's very, very low owned. And these are the teams, at least on FanDuel, that are sub 5% owned. We have the Braves, the Orioles, the Diamondbacks, the Nationals, the Rangers, the Pirates. Of those teams, I think the Braves pretty clearly have the best offense. They just underperformed at this point this year. They also have a very difficult matchup against Zach Allen. I think Allen's great. But already, I said that of the 3 pitchers on the high end, the one that I'm least apt to get to is going to be Zach Allen. I slightly prefer both Walker Buehler and Drew Rasmussen today. So if I'm going to be undercutting the field on Gallen, it kind of makes sense that I would also get some exposure to Atlanta. And Atlanta is one of the teams that we do have as being positively leveraged today, which makes sense because Zach Allen's going to be popular. People aren't going to roster the Braves offense when they're also rostering Zach Allen. And Gallen's one of the better pitchers on the slate. But I really do think we're going to start to see an uptick in the Braves output sooner rather than later. I think we started to see it a little bit yesterday with Ozuna hitting a couple homers. We got a couple doubles out of Matt Olson yesterday. Acuna is always going to be Acuna and be one of the better hitters in baseball. It's a very low probability outcome, but I do think that the Braves, when you look at them with 4.4% ownership, 7.3% chance to be a top stack, at least on FanDuel, they're a little more popular on DK. But for FanDuel purposes specifically, I think this is a good contrarian team to get to.
I'm with you. Talked about that exact point earlier today, where it's like, if I'm going to find offenses that are capable of matching up with them, Atlanta has to be considered as one of them, having Acuna back, having, basically power 1 through 9 now. Michael Harris, second, somebody to keep an eye on going forward if he moves up in the order. But Dansby Swanson getting up to the second now. There's just a lot of expected slugging in the heart of that order. Austin Riley, 586, Marcell Ozuna, 561. Dansby Swanson, 5'10", just been a really good hitter. We're finally starting to see some of that Vanderbilt form come to fruition. Obviously, he's a World Series champion here too, but never was that good of a hitter here. He's got all the way up to a 483x Wobicon now. That is by far the best mark he's had in the bigs, 450 being his best season in 2020. So I'm looking at him as a guy to get to. Overall, this entire lineup, I don't mind that being a contrarian stand. Again, if you get away from Milwaukee the way that you and I are kind of planning to do, you get the entire rest of the board at pretty good leverage.
Yeah. And then when it comes to Milwaukee, I want to ask you, because you were talking about one-offs a little bit before, and these are going to be really popular hitters, but how are you handling them as one-offs in potentially less popular stacks? Since you and I are both going to be underweight to the field on the Brewers as a whole, I am still plugging some of these guys in as one-offs. What are you doing with them?
See, it's always very, very tough because Aaron Judge is a guy that I think I've talked about a lot, where there are certain times I just don't want to play him as a 30% one-off on FanDuel, which is what we've ran into on a lot of like 10, 13 game slates here of late. I think on a 6-game slate, they're unavoidable. Like, you're going to play some Andrew McCutchen, Tyrone Taylor. They're not complete write-offs. They're in too good of a spot. It's too good of hitting conditions. It's Drew Smiley on the mound on the other side. There's just no way I'm not going to have some of them. But I capped every Milwaukee hitter at 15%, and naturally going in and having some of them fall through the cracks where I'm getting to some two-mans of certain things. I just got done talking about how I'm not going out of my way to roster 5-2 or 5-3 anymore on DK, but I do have like some hand-built lineups that I have with like a McCutchen Caratini 1-2. I have some individual lineups with like Keston Hero, who's batting 5th now today, and a Tyrone Taylor batting 3rd. I have a couple of those that are falling through in certain spots because it's too good of a spot to target for some home runs. But I don't want to get carried away. I'm hoping that it can be 1 or 2 hitters that really do all of the damage, and that it's not a team that just 1 through 9 is hitting bombs, because if they do, I'm in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, which, I mean, that happens a lot with baseball anyway. Like, I'm never concerned about the downside because baseball is such a high variance sport that you could have, I think this was my baseball season 2 years ago. It was my most profitable baseball season, and still, like, I lost far more slates than I won. What carried the baseball season for me was a 3-game slate. Aaron Nola was pitching for the Phillies against the Padres. Nola was like 80% owned on FanDuel. The Padres were picking up no ownership. I only stacked the Padres on that slate. The Padres ended up being the nuts, and I had like 15 or 16 of the top 20 lineups on FanDuel. That made my entire season. So you just make a lot of contrarian plays, and if just 1 or 2 of them pay off over the course of the season, it's going to be a good baseball year. And, it's kind of easy to lose sight of the fact sometimes where it's like, oh, I didn't play the chalky Red Sox yesterday and they scored 1 million runs. Therefore, I'm going to play the chalk the next day. Like, I'm cool with taking my lumps here and there because it's kind of inevitable. I don't want it to be a thing where I hit on the highest scoring team of the slate, and then a lot of those lineups don't even min cash because everybody else is playing them. So I'm going to be underweight to the field on the Brewers today, but some of those guys, like I said, I do think they have use as one-offs, but where I think they make the most sense is if you're using a couple Brewers players in a Brave stack, say on FanDuel, well, that's a stack that people generally aren't playing, and it makes more sense there.
Have we talked about the Rays at all? What are you doing with them?
Yeah, I like the Rays against Glenn Otto because Glenn Otto's no good. I actually had earlier in the day, the Rays were one of my favorite contrarian stacks when I did the tournament video in place of Adam. But the Rays have become more popular since then. I still think they're a team that's worth being overweight to the field to. I think they're a good pivot off of a team like the Brewers, but it's a little bit less appealing when they're going to have, like around 10% ownership than earlier in the day when they were going to be at like 6 or 7%. But it makes sense. Glenn Otto this year, 4.91 ERA, 4.94 FIP. You also have to look at some of the ways that he's giving up runs. Only a 39% ground ball rate paired with a 15.4% home run to fly ball rate. All alarming stuff. He's giving up a lot of runs. He's giving up a lot of fly balls with also a high home run to fly ball rate. So there's certainly potential for the Rays to hit a couple homers today.
Okay. I think for me, the best way to do it is just get rid of Kevin Kiermaier out of the one hole and stacking them up. And that's like my most efficient way that I'm finding to get different. I mean, you can still have a little bit, but he's sitting at 12% right now at 3,700. I'm just getting away from that, playing a Rosarena, playing, God forbid, Brett Phillips, but here we are. Wander Franco, Taylor Walls. I said it right the first time. Cool. I'm just getting to some of these other hitters that are not named Kevin Kiermaier, and I feel better about my lineups.
Did you see the last porn bot that came in?
Oh, they came back? Stop.
No,
it's
a different. Yeah, it just threw me off when I saw the thing. I was like, all right, very, very demanding porn bot.
Oh, sorry. Hands up.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to. Hands up. All right. I mean, we got clearly a dom here, this porn bot, just telling us what to do with ourselves. Yeah, you don't tell me what to do. I do what I want. I like the
hang
race
out with
too.
my work daddy.
Yeah.
It's fine. My work daddy.
Yeah, when Jordan's doing his shows with Law, I know it's a different dynamic, but still, that's when the bot should show up. What happened?
WET fun, homie. I think I stopped the porn bot before it even began.
How'd you stop it?
I don't know. I just did. I did it. First one.
No, it's not. Yeah, it could be him. Here's
porn bot king right here. Look at me go.
But that's one. That's just a bunch of emojis. Let's see. What are these emojis? We've got a tongue, a cop, Santa Claus.
Somebody like a Middle Eastern lady, a ghost, and an eggplant. I can't imagine what any of those are.
Yeah, I don't know what this is. So I don't know what this is all supposed to be either, especially with the ghost in here and like the whole thing is very bizarre. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure you could go to one of those urban dictionaries. You can find a really funny definition for all that stuff. But yeah, we've got porn bots totally out of control.
They started with hieroglyphics in Egypt, and this is what we have now. We have stickers and we have freaking emojis that just tell the story.
All right, a couple minutes left here, and then we'll get out of here. I just want to run through. Do you want to go position by position? Just say in your build who it is you're getting the most exposure to at each spot. Yeah,
which site you want to do?
Let's see.
I've ran 46 crunches today. Well, that's got to be a record for me. This is when you know NBA is not going on.
Well, no, NBA, I get way more than baseball.
I know, but I'm saying that I'm running like 46 crunches. I'm just saying that I've looked at this slate so many times today and kept filtering lineups and changing things and tweaking things and now it's done, but I've ran 46 today. I don't know the last time I did something like that.
So, I mean, to me, I just build way more for basketball because it just every time somebody gets ruled out, I have to build a new set of lineups. And then it's like, oh, I'm doing a show in the morning. Well, I have to make a set of lineups in the morning because I have to know who I'm getting to. And so I have something to talk about. And then just a million times players get ruled out. And then you do live before lock and guys are constantly getting late scratched. And there's the swaps after lock. So basketball, I think it's like routine that I'm getting.
See, I'm with Neil. I'm with you and Neil. Where in NBA, I'm always crunching new lineups. The most important thing you can do in NBA is to be malleable and not care about what your lineups look like 20 minutes before lock and just blowing them all to smithereens. But in MLB, I can't remember the last time I ran this many crunches. This is a lot.
Yeah, why for this day did you have so many though?
Well, because I kept having to tweak things, and then in Cruncher they had Aaron Ashby earlier in the day, and that never got removed, and so then I had to kind of individually. Kirk Casale, by the way, bomb. That's brutal for me. I think the guy had San Francisco. Yeah, he did. What a jerk! What a jerk!
Are you like me? For the most part, I don't know what I'm rooting for in baseball slates until it's like there's stuff that happens like, oh, that's good for me, and then I'll go look at my winnings, be like, oh no, that was no good for me, and then something will happen, and I'll be like, oh no, I didn't have very much exposure, and then you just find out like that guy is in like your best lineup randomly, even if you don't have a lot of them. I never know what I'm rooting for in baseball.
So I was in 10th in the $15 yesterday, and I didn't. So the guy that I had the most of, I was like, yeah, he hit a home run. And I went from 10th to like 48th. And I was like, what happened? Why is he not in that lineup? And it was not fun. So stuff like that happens where you have something that would internally be good that you're like, oh, I projected this. This is nice. But then it actually hurts your best lineup and you're screwed and you lose money on the slate. Yay.
By the way, it looks like Terry's on the same page as me because he says, I know for certain that the Braves doing well will be good for me on FanDuel today. So there we go. Yeah. Looks like Terry on the same page as me in terms of finding the Braves as a contrarian stack there. But I've got my DraftKings lineups up right here. You want to go position by position, just kind of shout out who the guys are where you get the most exposure to?
Oh, sure. We can do it. DraftKings
Okay.
Season.
All right.
All right. Oh, you want to go put the snowshoes on and go shovel for your dad, your good old dad, son. It's fine.
Okay. All right. Pitcher.
Oh, don't you know?
Pitcher on the high end, I get to Walker Buehler and Drew Rasmussen the most. If I'm saving salary, it is Aaron Ashby.
Buehler, Ashby, Gallen, Strider in order. And then Drew Rasmussen 20% as well.
All right. At the catcher spot, I'm getting to Will Smith the most.
Oh, look at you. I don't hate that. Christian Vasquez, number 1 for me. Will Smith 2. Dalton Varsho, number 3.
Also, I need to check to see, because I think we got the Dodgers lineup that came out during the show, but I haven't refreshed Cruncher for it yet.
Yeah,
So
we had like Rios batting, or Edwin Rios was batting fifth. It was exactly what you would expect it to be against a righty.
Betts, Freeman, Turner, Smith, Rio. I mean, either way, I'm going to have to rerun these lineups after that. I just didn't have that much urgency to correct everything for the Dodgers because it's the last game of the slate. So any players that are in or out, but it looks like Kevin Pillar's in the lineup, so that's a little different, but it's not going to change all that much.
In my FanDuel lineup, so I'm tweaking that quick because Josh Bell should not be in 28% of lineups. That's what that's why we do this.
That's why we do this exercise. We go through, we find any flaws.
Why am I so dumb? Why am I so dumb?
I'm getting to Mountcastle the most at first base.
What? You just talk about your boy Rich Hill, and then you throw him under the bus like that. Edwin Rios. If you didn't know that was my highest owned first baseman, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Mountcastle pops up a decent amount for me at second base. It is Luis Guillorme, who I don't think is a particularly good hitter, but he's leading off for the Mets. The Mets ended up being the stack I get the most exposure to. So Guillorme.
You break my heart. I just literally said I didn't want to do something like that because he's just so popular. But Trevor Story, he's my highest down there. Mark Mathias is showing up, batting eighth for the Milwaukee Brewers. Don't think anybody's clicking on that name. I'm just going to play the game environment.
So at third base, that's also Guillorme for me. So I guess I'll say Guillorme at third base and then Kettle Marte at second base as well. He's somebody I get to. Mike Brousseau also pops up in a lot of my lineups at the third base spot. Cheap in the middle of the Brewers lineup all makes sense for me. What is it for you at third base?
Eduardo Escobar season. Let's go.
Right.
One-time dealer.
I can get behind it. Shortstop. Trey Turner at shortstop.
Francisco Lindor, talked about him already. I'm spread out pretty thin there in terms of Franco, Turner, Lindor. Please beat Xander Bogaerts. That's the one guy I'm hoping doesn't go nuts from the Red Sox lineup.
And then in the outfield, I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys, but Tyrone Taylor, I think, makes a whole bunch of sense. I get to him a lot as a one-off, even though I'm underweight to the Brewers as a stack. Mookie Betts, pay-up option that I'm getting behind as well. Ronald Acuna, another contrarian option I like on this slate. Who are the outfielders that you're getting to the most?
Mookie Betts, JD Martinez, Enrique Hernandez, and Alex Verdugo. Let's go. Starling Marte, him and Lindor. Those are the two one-offs from the Mets side that I really, really like. They're the best hitters. I don't want to be going super deep into the back end of that lineup, hoping that they do all the damage for the Mets.
All right. That is going to do it for us today. We are at lock. If you guys have not done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Other than that, good luck, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Oh, boy.